Qingtong was furious. I'm interested in the toxins in your body. You possess a rare Wan-du physique. This explanation appeased Beng Weinan slightly, as this was considered a rather undesirable physique. If this physique appeared in an upper-class country, or a major dynasty, it would be treasured. However, Qingtong's aim was to cure the man and unleash his true Wan-du physique potential. She also intended to release him. She was confident that no one else could cure the man. Rather than die later, he could live a better life now. She believed the man would consider it. Upon returning to the dormitory, a pungent smell filled the air. It was coming from Si Xiaoxiao's room. Could she be refining medicine? As Qingtong pushed open the door, a powerful energy burst erupted. Xiao Qianming, startled by the explosion, cried out instinctively, shielding the unconscious Si Xiaoxiao from the shockwave. He found himself pinned beneath a pound woman. The situation escalated quickly, with the momentum building rapidly. It turned out that Si Xiaoxiao had been refining medicine in her room, which resulted in an explosion. At the critical moment, Xiao Qianming had transformed into his adult form to protect her. After the smoke cleared, Qingtong was furious. However, after confirming that Xiao Qianming and Si Xiaoxiao were unharmed, she was overwhelmed with concern for Xiao Qianming, noticing his injuries. The two rolled on the ground, ending up with Qingtong on top. This made Xiao Qianming blush furiously. It wasn't what he had intended. Zunzu's unusual behavior further worried Qingtong. She whispered in the man's ear, "Are you trying to seduce me?" Xiao Qianming, however, innocently denied it. Seizing the opportunity, Qingtong's lips moved towards Xiao Qianming's. Just as their lips were about to meet, a voice interrupted them. "I'm sorry." Both of them froze. Si Xiaoxiao, holding a medicine pot, stood there dumbfounded. She was a skilled medicine refiner with extraordinary talent. However, for some unknown reason, the medicines she refined could only reach low-grade quality. They would either explode or be duds, causing her great distress. Qingtong had discussed medicine refining with her, hoping to help her find the cause. To her surprise, the fourth-grade medicine liquid was successfully refined. The medicine was very stable, and its effects were potent. Qingtong's intentions were clear. She took the medicine and added high-grade spiritual herbs to compensate for the loss of medicinal properties, and to enhance its potency. The two medicines interacted within her hands. Si Xiaoxiao anxiously tried to stop her, fearing an explosion. As expected, the fusion process created an intense reaction. However, the medicine successfully stabilized in her hands. This astonished Si Xiaoxiao even more. Qingtong explained that as long as one understood the relationship between the medicinal properties and added ingredients that wouldn't alter the original properties, the grade of the medicine could be improved. Si Xiaoxiao finally understood. She was determined to become stronger and be Qingtong's exclusive medicine refiner. Hearing the word exclusive, Xiao Qianming became annoyed, because he was the woman's exclusive. Qingtong, however, rejected Si Xiaoxiao's offer because she already knew how to refine medicine. What she truly wanted to cultivate was someone with combat abilities who could intimidate opponents on the front lines. This would catch enemies off guard. Who would expect a medicine refiner to be a fighter? Upon hearing Qingtong's proposal, Si Xiaoxiao readily agreed. Seeing this, Xiao Qianming wondered if his woman was recruiting a love rival. 3 days later, the new student competition began. Yu Wenzu watched the trio from a distance. He had overheard Qingtong and her companions discussing Wu. He wanted to approach them and establish his presence. However, before he could reach Qingtong, he was blocked by Yuan Hu. Annoyed, he pushed Yuan Hu aside. He scoffed. Only trash resorts to forming cliques. Seeing Qingtong being surrounded, the two beside her confronted Yu Wenzu. Yu Wenzu looked at them with disdain, calling them trash. The next second, a crisp slap landed on his face. A tiger doesn't show its stripes, and you take me for a sick cat. Yu Wenzu clutched his stinging face, his expression darkening. Burning with anger, he lunged at Qingtong. Qingtong sidestepped, and Yu Wenzu, losing his balance, fell headfirst. As it happened, Qingtong had stuck her foot out as she dodged. She then continued with a mocking tone, "Brother is like father, sister-in-law is like mother, and I hit you because." Meanwhile, inside the protective barrier, Xiao Qianming was furious, wanting to confront Qingtong. He was fuming at Yu Wenzu. It was all because of him that his beloved Qingtong was hurt. Qingtong, oblivious to his anger, stood up to protect him. However, she ended up kicking him again. "It's all your fault." Now I'm the damsel in distress again. She continued to kick Yu Wenzu repeatedly. He finally realized Qingtong was trying to beat him to death. Just then, Luo Qingtong suddenly appeared. Seeing 7th princess being bullied, he rushed forward. He also brought up the Qian Yu imperial family's name. Qingtong sneered. You want to defend her? Then kneel down and apologize for her. Yu Wenzu didn't dare to disobey and knelt down. When he got up, he demanded the army from Qingtong. Qingtong, however, had anticipated this. You want the army? Then follow me to the Yang Wu battlefield. At the Yang Wu battlefield, everyone knelt. Qingtong addressed the crowd. The Luo family sword is invincible. The Qian Yu imperial family is corrupt. The command of the 3 armies shall be handed over to Wang Shi. Those of you who renounce your allegiance to the Wang clan and join the Luo family will be spared. This declaration amused the man, who would abandon the imperial army for the Luo family. It was a fool's errand. Qingtong suddenly slapped him. He was stunned by the sudden blow. The dignified prince had been slapped in front of the 3 armies. The man's face darkened. Qingtong merely mocked him. If you want to be a dog, be prepared to be beaten. At that moment, a man stepped forward from the ranks. General Mo Jiang is willing to follow the Luo family. More and more people followed suit, pledging their allegiance. Seeing this, the man panicked. His expression changed, and he ordered, everyone who agrees with my tong, get out. This was like throwing a bomb into the ranks of the 3 armies. Since the 3 armies are under Wang Shi's command, those who belong to the Luo family should be returned. The man's face turned ashen as he shouted. Qingtong, however, didn't even look back. The 3 armies were now divided into 2 factions. Qingtong pulled out a package of powder, and, using her spiritual power, scattered the powder into the wind. Inhale this, and you'll all turn into obedient puppets. She was quite pleased with this effect. Now, we can take back what belongs to the Luo family. The ice emblem was casually tossed to the dumbfounded Ding Fu. His face was as dark as a thundercloud. Luo Qingtong, you will regret this. Qingtong, however, dismissed his threat. Elsewhere, Feng Yu and Xiaobei arrived at the place where the fake ring was hidden. They embraced each other tightly. However, the moment Xiaobei picked up the ring, it exploded in his hand with a loud bang. Qingtong's playful message left the 2 speechless. They were amused by this childish prank. That night, in Mingzun's private quarters, Yi Qianming stared at the ring on his finger. Qingtong was currently wearing its counterpart. He slowly drifted off to sleep. At that moment, Qingtong and Chanzu were sound asleep. Suddenly, Qingtong opened her eyes, gazing at the unfamiliar surroundings, dazed. She rubbed her eyes, still sleepy. Where am I? She wondered if she was dreaming. Suddenly, her expression changed, and she froze. Yi Qianming was standing there, looking at her. The man had merely kissed her forehead, and entered her dream. It turned out that his ring and hers were a pair. Qingtong stared at him, wide-eyed. Seeing her dumbfounded expression, Yi Qianming chuckled. Woman, have you missed me? Qingtong instinctively recoiled. No, this angered him. You won't even admit it in your dream. Do you hate me that much? He continued, if you don't miss me, why are you dreaming of me? Hearing these words, Qingtong's face turned cold. Inwardly, she cursed. In my dream, I'm in charge. Seeing Yi Qianming laugh, she realized, what's he so happy about? Suddenly, she dashed towards him. I miss you so much. And I want to. Before she could finish, her hand was caught by the man. Before she knew what was happening, she was pulled into Yi Qianming's embrace. He whispered gently, I miss you too. Qingtong remained unresponsive. After a while, she finally reacted, her hands roaming over his body. Wow, this body is amazing. It feels so real. He chuckled, of course it's real. You're touching me. Qingtong snuggled closer, not understanding the man's darkening expression. She didn't know that a sliver of Yi Qianming's soul resided within the Juyu Huang realm seal, and had entered her dream. Through their connected rings, the man had never encountered such a docile woman before. Do you like it? He asked, a blissful expression on his face. He caressed her face. Since you like it so much, tell me, he whispered. Tell me your real name and how I can find you. Just as she was about to reveal herself, his words brought her back to her senses. Who are you? Why are you asking these questions? She widened her eyes. Her suspicions towards the man rekindled. Yi Qianming realized he had been too hasty, and turned his head away, frustrated. I am who I am. This confused Qingtong even more. This man was incredibly bold to dare play dumb. Suddenly, Yi Qianming moved, and she found her hands bound by chains. This position flustered her. This woman actually dared to tie him up so roughly. Qingtong slowly approached him, her lips curling into a sinister smile. Don't tell me you've never been tied up before. Yi Qianming, not daring to meet her gaze, stammered, You tricked me again. Qingtong continued, teasing him. If you want to live, hurry up and find the antidote. Otherwise, she leaned closer. I have many ways to make you talk. Yi Qianming, flustered, tried to reason with her. He had come all this way to save her, and now she was threatening him. It was too much. Seeing her mischievous smile, Qingtong finally relented. She couldn't bear to see him suffer. Let's go. Let's leave my dream. The dignified Ming Zun was thus kicked out of the dream by his wife. Ming Zun, or rather Yi Qianming, opened his eyes abruptly. He desperately wanted to find Qingtong and ask her facetto face how he could win her heart. At that moment, Qingtong's face was flushed, her heart pounding uncontrollably. That man was becoming increasingly difficult to deal with. He had changed, and she was about to lose her composure. Recalling the man's sweet words, she felt a mix of emotions. Chunzu was completely dumbfounded by her erratic behavior, inwardly screaming. That useless fool only knows how to chase skirts. He's nothing but a high-ranking beast. Is he even capable of love? And now, she's acting like a lovesick fool. Qingtong lifted Chunzu's face and threatened, If you keep talking nonsense, I will shave your head. Understand? Chunzu nervously nodded, and could only look on helplessly. Qingtong stood up, grabbed Chunzu's head, and used it as a makeshift mallet. She continued to berate him. All you do is chase skirts. You call yourself an ancient divine beast. You'll become a fat pig sooner or later. The next day, Qingtong left the Luo residence for Juwu Mountain. Before leaving, she instructed Zan who to guard the Luo residence and kill anyone who dared to cause trouble. Meanwhile, Yi Qianming summons Wu Fei. Besides Ziyi and the person in the portrait, look for anyone searching for the Jiao Luo Qi, regardless of gender. Find them all for me. Zhu Fei accepted the order and assured him, Rest assured, master. Inwardly, however, he was apprehensive. Just as Beiqin had said, was the master interested in men? The thought was unsettling. Even the master had these kinds of preferences now. He glanced at Zhu Fei, who quickly put on an exaggeratedly flamboyant demeanor. Yi Qianming, however, had another plan in mind. The woman had simply tossed away a dud, but Chunzu found himself blasted into the air. It turned out she was testing explosives. She had entrusted the imperial family's protection to her subordinates and instructed them to use the resources to make fake shu mi rings and distribute them. She also included a list of medicinal ingredients to search for in the treasury. Time passed as she meticulously placed the ingredients according to the book. Chunzu questioned, Do you even know how to refine medicine? Of course she did. She was following the instructions in the book to help her grandfather recover. The most crucial step was to infuse the medicine with the power of heaven and earth. Only then could the medicine reach its full potential. As she carefully placed the ingredients, the roof of the room was suddenly blown off. Both Qingtong and Chunzu were wide-eyed. The Qian Xingguo finally formed. Lao Sen cried out in excitement as the cauldron exploded. Chunzu, having been through numerous explosions, now laughed heartily. This is the first time I've seen Qingtong succeed. He didn't notice a figure approaching from the sky. Without warning, it slammed him to the ground, and a blood-curdling scream echoed. As night fell, the medicine was finally complete. Qingtong opened her eyes abruptly. Seeing the completed medicine, she exclaimed, It's finally done. Chunzu also sighed in relief. After countless explosions and wasted ingredients, he no longer had to live in fear. Qingtong was about to take a deep breath, when Xiao Zhu suddenly fell onto the table. The medicine needed to cure her eyes was finally ready. This discovery sent Chunzu on a frantic search, prompting Qingtong to investigate. In the midst of the chaos, she found a letter. It was a recommendation from the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Remembering the old man she encountered in Heiyu, Xiao Zhu thought he must have been impressed by Qingtong's talent to send her this. Suddenly, a voice startled him. A figure flashed into the room. Qingtong was startled to see Luo Qingtong arrive. Meanwhile, Xiao Bei was eagerly searching for Feng Yu. Ever since their last encounter, Feng Yu had removed the seal. Now, There were traces of Juyu Huang realm energy in the river. He couldn't swim, and panicked. Suddenly, a splash made him think Feng Yu had. He turned around to find Zhu Fei smiling at him. Recalling the incident at Dai Sifang, Xiao Bei's body trembled. Zhu Fei, embarrassed, explained that he was about to rescue him, but was stopped by Feng Yu. Feng Yu angrily questioned him, "Why did you hurt Xiao Bei? If anything happens to him, you'll pay the price." He was, after all, Bei Ke's subordinate. Feng Yu, however, was mercilessly pushed away. He was no longer worthy of being near Xiao Bei. Suddenly, Xiao Bei emerged from the water. Noticing tears in Feng Yu's eyes, Feng Yu embraced Xiao Bei. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left you alone." Seeing Feng Yu cry, Xiao Bei suddenly felt a pang of guilt. He didn't know why he felt this way. Zhu Fei, watching the two, felt a warmth spread through his heart. Seeing the two embracing, however, filled Feng Yu with an unknown sense of jealousy. Xiao Bei was also startled by Zhu Fei's actions, his eyes widening in surprise. He couldn't imagine what kind of trauma Dai Sifang had inflicted on him. He could only suppress his anger and force a smile as he explained the situation. Only after hearing the explanation did Xiao Bei admit that he had indeed overreacted. He also mentioned that since he couldn't swim, he wanted Zhu Fei to check if there were any Juyu Huang realm remnants in the water. Hearing this, Feng Yu inwardly cursed and scolded Xiao Bei. Just as Zhu Fei entered the water, Xiao Bei suddenly moved. Feng Yu instinctively reacted. As Xiao Bei watched in shock, Feng Yu effortlessly lifted a massive rock and hurled it into the water. Zhu Fei, still underwater, was unaware of the impending danger. Feng Yu, thousands of miles away, had brought his men and surrounded the Luo residence. It turned out that the Wang clan's army hadn't managed to capture the crown prince. Instead, they were threatened by Qingtong, who held the prince hostage. The Wang clan reported this to Qian Yu, and after Yu Wenzu's plea, the Qian Yu emperor ordered Yu Wenzu to rescue the prince and destroy the Luo residence. The man stood before the Luo residence. The formations Qingtong had set were child's play to him. With a wave of his hand, the formations shattered, and spiritual energy surged from the Luo residence. The man raised his hand, his expression cold and ruthless. He ordered his men, "Leave no one alive." He stormed into the Luo residence, his target. Luo Lao Yizi, Zan Yu flew towards him like a moth to a flame, only to be effortlessly swatted aside. The last person was dealt with just as he was about to enter the house. He triggered a formation. To his surprise, this small Luo family residence was so heavily fortified. He channeled spiritual energy within his body, and a massive energy shield materialized before him. It was his signature move, Yi Jian Cheng Cheng. Just then, a sword beam shot from the Luo family sword, shattering the energy shield. Qingtong, disguised as Ziyi, appeared before the man. Countless figures emerged from within the Luo residence. He ordered his men to make preparations, while he dealt with the intruders personally. Chunzu was worried about Qingtong's body, as she had consumed a large amount of highly potent medicine. Qingtong, however, was unconcerned. The man was surprised that Ziyi Guitong would stand up for the Luo family. After all, Ziyi's identity was too sensitive. He stepped forward. "Is there something I can help you with?" His dual swords instantly transformed into deadly weapons. A chilling killing intent emanated from Qingtong, engulfing the Luo residence. The man could only reveal his identity. He was Yu Wenzu of the Qian Yu imperial family. Upon hearing this, Qingtong's killing intent intensified. The sword technique the man had just used was effortlessly countered by Qingtong. As the mist cleared, the man's protective armor was revealed. Xiaozu warned Qingtong, "Be careful, that's a Wu Di armor." The man laughed maniacally. "A mere armor. I'm not afraid of you." His attack crashed against the man's body, but it failed to injure him. He raised his hand and punched Qingtong, sending her flying. A ferocious tiger materialized behind the man, its spiritual power surging. The tiger lunged towards Qingtong. Chunzu, terrified, flew out of his hiding place, screaming, "Help." He wanted to help, but Qingtong ordered him to stay back. He was curious about the formation, and wanted to see if the Yinhan Muse could function in this spirit-rich environment. Qingtong watched as the tiger approached. "You're seriously injured, and you still dare to use spiritual power. You're asking for it." Her red pupils glowed. This was a truly ruthless gambler. Spiritual energy surged into her sword. First move of Zan Qianju. Fa Ju. An immense force slammed into the tiger's paw. The tiger screamed in agony. The next day, Luo Fu's gate was besieged by uninvited guests. The Luo family will fall because of Luo Qingtong sooner or later. If you're smart, you'll switch sides and follow second miss. Those who had moments before acted high and mighty, dismissing Luo Qingtong as useless, now groveled and begged for mercy. It turned out that after settling matters at Juwu Mountain, Qingtong had returned to Luo Fu. Simply by glancing, the man was instantly subdued by tears. However, Qingtong poured the yixiang he brought onto them, and instructed the war slaves. Since they want to join us, let them have their fill. She then ordered them to be locked up. Go and tell Luo Shenning that I will collect the debt she and her mother owe the Luo family and me, with interest. Back at Luo Fu, Luo Lao Yizi's face was pale and lifeless. Looking at the state of the residence, he asked weakly, what happened? The household knelt, terrified. The steward explained that Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation was rapidly dissipating. At this rate, he would become a cripple. These words deeply affected Qingtong. Touching Luo Lao Yizi's pale face, she understood his pain. Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation had already fallen to the 6th level of Wuzong, and was still declining. This infuriated Qingtong. Who could devise such a cruel and insidious method? The steward could only recount the events. It was Luo Shenning's doing. After Luo Lao Yizi collapsed, she declared herself head of the Luo family, claiming that Qingtong was responsible for the family's ruin. However, Qingtong didn't believe this. Luo Shenning lacked the courage and intelligence for such a scheme. It had to be the Qianyu imperial family's doing. She was merely a pawn. Suddenly, Luo Lao Yizi regained consciousness. Seeing Qingtong safe and sound, Luo Lao Yizi was relieved. He blamed himself for his reckless actions that led to his coma and Qingtong's worry. Qingtong reassured him, Grandpa, don't worry. Everything will be fine. Luo Lao Yizi chuckled. Losing some cultivation isn't a big deal. As long as you're okay, it's nothing. Tears welled up in Qingtong's eyes. Luo Lao Yizi had done everything for her. How could she protect him now? She held her grandfather's hand. Don't worry, Grandpa. I can take care of the Luo family. It'll also help you recover your cultivation, and you'll be even stronger than before. At Luo Shenning's residence, the Luo family plaque hung prominently above the gate. Inside, Bai Lian's family celebrated. They had taken control of the Luo family, and were now raising their glasses to Qingtong's downfall. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses broke the revelry. By order of eldest miss, we're here to arrest the second branch and confiscate the property. Bai Lian's mother was enraged. The war slave displayed the imperial edict, sending a wave of panic through the room. Bai Lian was terrified. She couldn't believe a mere guard possessed the strength of a 5th-level woohoo. Why does Luo Qingtong have such powerful guards? The war slave, seeing their hesitation, advanced, and Bai Lian and the others retreated in fear. Suddenly, Bai Lian's gaze shifted, and she pushed her father towards the war slaves. In the ensuing chaos, the guards easily subdued Bai Lian's father. While retreating, Bai Lian even threw her maidservants, one by one, towards the guards. He was clearly willing to sacrifice everything. Cries of shock and anger echoed from the entrance of the Luo residence. The men were imprisoned in the dungeon, but one of them, Lao pleaded to be released. He was a loyal follower of Wang Xifeng, who was backed by the Qianyu Emperor's faction. Qingtong learned from Zhan Enyu that Bai Lian had fled to the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. When she arrived at the dungeon, she overheard the man's plea to the guards. Qingtong scoffed. Your own father is being used as a shield, and you still want him to rescue you. The man, however, had a different perspective. He believed this was all part of Ning Er's plan. His eyes turned cold. He would not forgive anyone who had harmed his grandfather, especially those behind the scheme. He hurled insults at the man, calling him worse than an animal for using his own father as a pawn. Lao oblivious, still wanted to argue. Qingtong took out some pills. The first war slave was ordered to give Luo Lao the pills. She also released the decoy outside. Luo Lao's face paled upon hearing this. As the man swallowed the pills, his strength surged dramatically. However, using this power would result in a severe backlash. If he didn't use it, he would turn into a beast. Luo Lao cried out in despair, Ninger, I will not let you go. Qingtong disregarded him. Her next target was Bai Lian. Late at night, Qingtong sat in her study, reading. Zhan Enyu informed her that Luo Shenning had returned to the Luo residence, accompanied by an instructor from the Qian Yu Branch Academy. Moreover, the instructor was inexplicably devoted to Qingtong. Intrigued, Qingtong decided to investigate. She instructed Zhan Enyu to compile a list of all the gifts she had received from the royal family and clans over the years, planning to send Bai Lian a special delivery in return. Meanwhile, in her room, Bai Lian was pacing anxiously. She was convinced that Qingtong wouldn't let her off easily. Her father's disappearance was also Qingtong's fault. Chu Lao Ma was absent, but if he dared to return and cause trouble, she would make him pay. Bai Lian put on a pitiful display, eliciting Chu Lao's sympathy. He believed she was too kind-hearted, and that's why Qingtong bullied her. Suddenly, a crash startled them both. The Luo family plaque lay shattered on the floor. Qingtong, atop a tall horse, ordered the war slaves to smash the plaque to smithereens. She slapped Bai Lian, whose face was heavily made up, for daring to call herself Luo. The war slaves enthusiastically carried out her order. Stop. This plaque was given to Miss by the Qian Yu Branch Academy. Qingtong, however, remained unmoved. Bai Lian reappeared, putting on a dramatic performance. Big sister, what are you doing? The two locked eyes. The Luo family plaque was all that remained. You've been expelled from the Luo family. Are you still worthy of hanging this plaque? Qingtong then instructed her men to bring a new one. The two characters Dao Fu on the new plaque instantly infuriated Bai Lian. Fear and indignation filled her as she shrieked, "You're my own sister. How can you humiliate me like this? Don't you have a conscience?" Qingtong's anger only intensified at Bai Lian's false display of innocence. Bai Lian tearfully cried, "Big sister, you're so cruel. You kicked me out of the Luo family, and now you're still hounding me. Look at what you've done to the Luo family. Grandpa's declining cultivation is all your fault." Her acting was worthy of an award. Qingtong would have been fine had she not mentioned Luo Lao Yizi, but bringing him up only fueled her rage. Zhan Enyu stepped forward. "What have you done? Do you dare to tell the truth?" Bai Lian's face changed rapidly. Just moments before, she had fiercely defended her disciple and showered him with affection. But now, she was slapped hard across the face. It turned out Qingtong had not only revealed her scandalous actions, but also presented undeniable proof. Moments ago, when questioned, Bai Lian had shamelessly hidden behind Chu Lao. He couldn't bear to see his beloved disciple being humiliated. In Qingtong's eyes, Bai Lian was a cruel, arrogant bully, hiding behind the fifth prince's name, causing trouble wherever she went. Qingtong frowned. "And who is this dog? The Luo family's business is none of yours." Bai Lian twisted Qingtong's disrespectful words to her advantage, revealing that Chu Lao was an admissions instructor from the Qian Yu Branch Academy. Qingtong inwardly mocked the old fool for being taken in by the two-faced Bai Lian and becoming her shield. He must have lost his mind. Qingtong scoffed, showing no respect. This enraged Chu Lao, and he threatened to teach her the meaning of respect. Qingtong, however, was unfazed. While Chun Zu was itching to confront the old man, Qingtong stopped him. She disliked fighting and preferred to watch the show. She ordered the war slaves to bring out the account books. "Since Chu Lao wants to defend her, let's settle these accounts on behalf of your dear disciple." She then threw Zhao Mu into Bai Lian's arms, leaving her flustered and scrambling. When Chu Lao saw the accounts, he inwardly panicked. He tried to intervene, but it was too late. He insisted Qingtong had fabricated the accounts, claiming none of the listed items existed. Qingtong, knowing Bai Lian all too well, challenged her, "Do you dare to let me search your residence?" The war slaves were dispatched. Bai Lian pinned her hopes on Chu Lao, her heart pounding, her face paling. "Those were all gifts from you." This admission sealed her fate. Qingtong didn't miss a beat. "The Qian Yu imperial family gave me those things. Why would I gift them to you? Do you expect me to return them?" Bai Lian was speechless, tears streaming down her face. "You're just jealous of my superior talent." Suddenly, a shout interrupted her crocodile tears. "Why are you using your mother's money?" Bai Lian insisted. Qingtong coerced her into accepting countless treasures. Qingtong was thoroughly exasperated. Am I crazy? Forcing you to take treasures? Am I the one who's lost it, or is it you?" She instructed the war slaves to take everything. Anyone obstructing them would be considered an enemy of the Qian Yu imperial family. Seeing her scheme fail, Bai Lian begged Chu Lao to intervene. Chu Lao, without hesitation, stood. "Her pressure is just a ploy to get back the recommendation and the heirloom." He accused Qingtong of disrespecting the imperial family, declaring she would never enter the Qianyu Academy. Qingtong scoffed. That thing has been used. I don't want it. Getting into the Qianyu Academy depends on skill, not on being a Luo. She looked pointedly at Chu Lao's jade pendant. Isn't this the engagement token the fifth prince gave me? This sent Chu Lao into a blind rage. He ripped off the pendant, and shouted at Bai Lian, didn't you say it was from the Qianyu imperial family? Bai Lian was utterly speechless, her face ashen. Qingtong roared with laughter. This is my limit. Who knows who's really reached theirs? She slapped Bai Lian. Chu Lao had never been so humiliated. Qingtong, not missing a beat, clapped in amusement. She tossed the jade pendant away, and left triumphantly. She relished the fact that others couldn't touch her, while she remained untouchable. Xiaozu appeared, clapping his hooves in admiration. Suddenly, the Juyu Huang realm seal began to tremble. Qingtong was taken aback. Xiaozu was startled. Why was the seal, which had been quiet for so long, suddenly active? Qingtong was busy lecturing Bai Lian, but vanished in an instant. It seemed something was happening with the Juyu Huang realm seal. The cause of the commotion was the man's return. Yi Qianming's heart and mind were filled with Qingtong. Back in the dark sacred region, a multitude of people bowed before the returning sovereign. His return calmed the turbulent atmosphere. Feng Yu and Bai Shou exchanged knowing glances. Yu Lao teased him, thinking he had been lured away by the invitation. The man, however, simply raised his hand, revealing the impressive dragon fang sword. This sight shocked Yu Lao. He hadn't believed the man would actually return to the dark sacred region. Yu Lao, his eyes fixated on the ring, asked, don't tell me you came back just for this ring. So, that little invitation really did reel you in. Xiaobei, seizing the moment, boldly declared that the invitation wasn't from a woman. Just as Xiaobei was about to stumble through an explanation, Yi Qianming silenced him with a glare. Yu Lao, observing the man's flustered reaction, continued, so, that little invitation really captured your heart. Xiaobei desperately tried to deny it. Feng Yu interrupted, explaining that Qingtong misunderstood Mingzun's feelings. She likely thought he was merely pursuing her. This only fueled Yi Qianming's frustration further. I not only told her my name, but we even bathed together. I let her touch me as she pleased, and I even gave her the Juyu Huang realm sword. Was that not enough? Is that so? Feng Yu's mouth twitched. This clueless sovereign. Feng Yu attempted another explanation. From Qingtong's perspective, your special treatment might simply be seen as admiration, not romantic interest. Yi Qianming stubbornly insisted, do you expect me to confess my feelings for her? I, the dignified Mingzun, how can I utter such words? Enough, Feng Yu sighed, avoiding eye contact. Dejected, he wondered what he had done wrong. Seeing the sovereign's increasingly gloomy expression, Feng Yu suggested, perhaps Qingtong's way of thinking is different. Maybe your royal status, to her, just means that you're someone pursuing her. This advice forced Yi Qianming to rethink his approach. How could he make her reciprocate his feelings? Meanwhile, Qingtong was wandering the pleasure district. The fake ring she crafted amazed even Chun Zhu. She had designed the ring to absorb her spiritual energy, altering its aura and making it undetectable. After finishing the fake ring, she resumed her Qingtong disguise. Chun Zhu was exasperated. Are you afraid he won't find you? You're practically advertising your Qingtong identity. Qingtong, however, had her reasons. Having entered the Qianyu imperial treasury, she needed to sell the goods quickly. Chun Zhu muttered, you're playing with fire again. Suddenly, she overheard discussions about the Qianyu imperial family's protector, Bei Dao, being challenged. To find the culprit, the imperial family had summoned Chu Lao, but he was severely injured by a mysterious Sheng Zun expert, making them fear Mingzun. Both Qingtong and Chun Zhu were stunned. When did he become so powerful? Chun Zhu scoffed, Sheng Zun. Please. He wishes, but after some thought, Qingtong realized the only person capable of injuring the imperial family's protector and scaring Chu Lao was that man. A chilling thought struck her. Juwu Mountain Mingzun, could they be the same person? Qingtong's blood ran cold. Since the stolen goods were handled by Yi Qianming, she should leave them for him. Not far away, Jizun assassins were monitoring Qingtong. Aware of being followed, she headed towards the main city. The assassins were puzzled when she entered their territory. Suddenly, she appeared on the city wall. Looking for me. With a casual wave, she activated a seemingly ordinary confinement formation. The assassins merely scoffed. Killing this woman was as easy as squashing a bug. Qingtong observed them, wondering why the Jizun Assassin Guild was targeting her, Ziyi Gui Tong. Unbeknownst to the assassins, the formation was merely a distraction. She just needed an excuse to kill. A sinister smile played on her lips. She summoned a sword. The assassins, initially relaxed, were now on high alert. Before they could react, Qingtong had vanished in a blow of colors. Needles rained down. Their leader instantly became a pincushion. Qingtong coldly questioned, "I'll give you one last chance." "Who sent you?" The assassins were shocked by her prowess. A mere Wujiang, yet possessing such power. Qingtong, however, didn't wait for reply, and readied her dual swords for the kill. Chun Tzu watched their battle, bewildered. He didn't understand what she was doing. She possessed divine weapons and king-level strength, yet she was allowing the man to pressure her. Qingtong grew more and more frustrated. Her strength was waning, and she could collapse at any time. Suddenly, Zhu Gan felt a surge of regret. He remembered Yi Qianming's order to protect Qingtong. This woman couldn't be harmed. Otherwise, they were all doomed. He channeled his spiritual fire, which blazed fiercely. A red-haired youth materialized. Qingtong also noticed Chun Tzu's transformation. Just as the youth was about to attack, a cold voice stopped him. "Do not interfere." He too was shocked. It turned out he had orchestrated everything, using the assassins as pawns. A grey-robed man leaped down. The assassins were stunned. Why would she choose to fight here? Spiritual energy surged into his sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Vo Qian. It was Yi Qianming who had hired the assassins. Trapped within the formation, the man screamed in agony, struggling uselessly. Qingtong was secretly delighted. She hadn't expected the techniques Yi Qianming had taught her to be so powerful. Chun Tzu, crying, rushed towards her. She almost died. "Don't you care?" Qingtong pinched his face. "I felt a power surge from her just now." "Did you actually think she was going to die?" "Besides, I don't care about that idiot." Qingtong's strength had recovered somewhat, reaching the mid-level Shengzun realm. She was still uneasy. If she didn't regain her full strength soon, she would be in grave danger. Suddenly, Chun Tzu exclaimed, "What are you doing?" Zhan Enyu anxiously explained that the commotion was because the instructor from Qianyu Branch Academy had gone missing. He cautiously added, glancing at Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming stared intently at Qingtong. Qingtong's heart sank. A sudden flash of inspiration struck her. "I'll take care of rescuing the instructor. You go after them." Seeing Qingtong's delicate figure, he realized she truly cared. Suddenly, Qingtong grabbed the man's hand. "Forget them. He's injured." The two exchanged glances, and Yi Qianming was stunned. Qingtong ripped open the man's clothes. He, the high and mighty Mingzun, was now being undressed by a woman. Not only was he being groped by this female rogue, but she also looked at him with a wronged expression. Bacon stared, wide-eyed. He'd never seen anything so exciting. Yi Qianming was furious. This woman had been scheming and taking advantage of him from the very beginning. Every encounter was a new form of exploitation. Qingtong blushed, admitting her guilt. She lightly touched the man's meridians, a familiar sensation causing Yi Qianming to tremble. He was touched where Qingtong's fingers had been. He didn't understand what Qingtong was doing. Qingtong, however, inwardly cursed 18 generations of the man's ancestors. "Are your meridians made of iron? The energy won't flow through." As her fingers moved downwards, Yi Qianming yelled, "What are you doing?" Qingtong put on a pitiful expression, complaining. "Are you trying to frame me?" "I'm trying to heal you." Feng Yu was suddenly attacked by assassins. Qingtong sensed the danger, and knew she was running out of time. Her red pupils flickered. Chun Tzu transformed into a cannonball, crashing into the assassins. "Stop her!" From within the barrier, Chun Tzu's panicked voice echoed, "She's crazy. Those assassins are at least in Sheng level." Qingtong utilized the Tong Shu. Tong Guang Hua Shu. The assassins cried out in pain. Feng Yu recklessly attacked, not fearing death. Yi Qianming watched coldly. Is this truly what she's capable of? Chun Tzu was terrified by the sudden display of brutality. Qingtong shouted at him. "If you can't stop them, I'll stew you. I'm not raising you to be useless. Do your job." Chun Tzu, abandoning his usual lazy demeanor, released his spiritual power, crackling with energy. Qingtong stated, We need to finish this quickly to minimize the damage to them. It turned out that Yi Qianming's meridians had already been tampered with. Chunzu was like a phoenix reborn. Purpled spiritual power formed a long dragon, coiling around the assassins. Chunzu's involvement turned the tide of the battle. Feng Yu pierced through one of the assassins, who was grabbed by another. Hurry and kill the target. To their surprise, the assassin wouldn't die. Sensing the situation was dire, Yi Qianming urged Qingtong to escape. Qingtong looked up at him. Could she really leave him behind? Seeing her hesitation, Yi Qianming's resolve strengthened. He would rather die than see Qingtong captured. Was he truly going to abandon her? He had tricked and harmed her so many times, yet, she had forgiven him time and time again. With his strength, killing her would be effortless. Suddenly, Qingtong spoke. Do you really not blame me for all the things I've done to you, for putting you in such danger? Yi Qianming answered sincerely, no matter what, it was my own miscalculation. Why would I blame you? A pang of heartache struck Qingtong. The assassins were closing in. Qingtong seemed to have made up her mind. Close your eyes, she said, a determined look in her eyes. Yi Qianming, feigning ignorance, didn't understand what she was planning. He was preparing to break free of the restraints. This made Qingtong anxious. This man was truly troublesome. She tore off her mask, and pulled the man into an embrace. With their lips pressed together, the man's body trembled. Yi Qianming didn't understand why she was transferring her remaining spiritual power to him. The transferred power suddenly surged back. She wants my power. He pushed her away. Realizing what had happened, Yi Qianming took the initiative. In an instant, Qingtong felt a surge of energy, almost overwhelming her. Uncontrollable spiritual power coursed through her. The assassins, stunned by the sudden power surge, hesitated. We shouldn't kill her. There might be repercussions. Zhu Gan pulled Yi Qianming away from the chaos. He casually waved his grey robe. The approaching assassins were instantly incinerated. He looked at Yi Qianming. Teach me your strongest move. He was now like a volcano about to erupt. Yi Qianming, due to his unique constitution, had only cultivated one technique, which only he could use. Qingtong, however, ignored his protests and urged him to hurry. Seeing her desperation, he didn't hesitate. Red trees materialized, their branches reaching towards the sky, a perfect fusion of offense and defense. Zan Qianzhe. Qianxing Kei Di Lai. As the formation appeared, a projection of the Zan Qianzhu's movements unfolded before Qingtong. Qingtong's eyes lit up with understanding. She grabbed two swords. First move of Zan Qianzhu. Zhuqian. With this single strike, heaven and earth trembled. A terrifying power, capable of splitting the heavens, erupted, and the approaching semi-Sheng assassins were instantly vaporized. This scene stunned Bei Qin and Chunzu. Feng Yu was also shocked. That was Master's ultimate move. Ziyi knew it. Cheng Yang vanished, and Qingtong collapsed. Yi Qianming, watching Qingtong execute the technique, felt a surge of intense emotions. This woman is destined to be mine. The poison in Yi Qianming's body was purged by the force of the attack. His gaze locked onto the woman before him. Qingtong, her spiritual energy depleted, leaned against him. It was the first time she had leaned on him so unguardedly, like a tired kitten. Qingtong hadn't expected the man to be so powerful. Just a casual use of the technique had such devastating results. If only you were weaker, she sighed. Yi Qianming was taken aback. Weaker? Isn't it better to be stronger in this world? For the first time, Qingtong revealed her true feelings. If you were weaker, I could keep you by my side, and wouldn't have to. She trailed off, her voice barely a whisper. Yi Qianming's eyes widened. So, she really does care for me. She really does, but you're too strong, so strong that I can't control you. I hate that feeling of helplessness. Yi Qianming was overjoyed. She wants to keep me by her side. But she's afraid because I'm too strong. He immediately announced, my strength might be overwhelming, but if you want to stay, you're welcome to. Qingtong smiled wryly, finding his words unrealistic. Thank you, Zunzu. She moved closer and rested her head on his shoulder. In a flash, his face darkened, and he stiffened. Yi Qianming didn't notice her discomfort, and was lost in his own thoughts. I am who I am. Why would I change for anyone? He thought. He then began to fret. Why is it so hard for me to be near her? Don't tell me I'm actually. Xiaobei interrupted his thoughts, excitedly pointing out that Feng Yu was looking at them. He winked mischievously. This is love, isn't it? Zhan Enyu, however, thought the scene was utterly disgusting. Are they really brothers? This is too much. I can't watch. Ignoring them, Qingtong pulled out a nourishing pill and placed it in Yi Qianming's hand. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. Only Qingtong in the entire continent possessed such a pill. Who would have thought the cold and ruthless Ming Zun would act so tenderly? This scene was even more unbearable for Yu Wenmo, who felt a pang of jealousy. Meanwhile, his spiritual form gradually solidified. This medicine was a modified version of an ancient formula, and he was the first to try it. After hearing this, Yi Qianming looked serious and told him not to reveal the medicine refining to anyone. Externally, he was to maintain the Ziyi persona. Should anything happen, he would take full responsibility. Qingtong's heart was touched by his concern. She nodded, her eyes welling up. This was the second time the man had reassured her. The first time had been about the Qianyang Mi. This time, he was being truly sincere. His heart pounded uncontrollably, and Yi Qianming, with a solemn expression, vowed to protect her. He didn't notice her tears. Suddenly, she kissed his cheek, startling Yi Qianming. Looking at him, she whispered, "Thank you." Her sincere gaze made Yi Qianming blush, stammering for her to let go. Meanwhile, at the Dongli Kingdom Palace, the man paced anxiously, plotting against Shen Fa. Liu Wenyi looked troubled. It had only been a short time, yet they were already facing defeat. Suddenly, applause echoed. Qingtong appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. Her presence shocked the prince, who immediately ordered his guards to attack and kill her. The air suddenly fell silent. No one responded to the man's command. They simply froze, standing beside him. Why not just kill this trash? Do you need permission? He thought, inwardly fuming. He was also enraged. How dare some random nobodies challenge him? No wonder he couldn't find her. She was hiding. He grabbed Yi Qianming's small hand. Let her go. I'll help you. Seeing Qingtong's terrified expression, the man's heart softened. Don't worry. I'm here to help. He gently stroked her head. Xiao Qianming's expression darkened. Don't you have anyone else to play with? He thought. Is it really necessary to flirt with everyone you meet? Don't tell me you actually enjoy being promiscuous. Hearing this, Qingtong was filled with murderous intent. Countless dark figures surrounded them. They forced everyone to kneel before Qingtong. She took out the antidote and gave it to them. Yi Qianming, however, stopped her, angrily asking what she was doing. It was not allowed. Embarrassed, Ming Zun raised his hands in surrender. Zhan Enyu quickly accepted the antidote and placed it in his mouth. This satisfied Yi Qianming, who then lectured him. He was curious why Qingtong had done this. She explained that this would force them to become her spies, and would also serve as a warning to the person behind this. To teach the woman a lesson, Zunzu decided to feign sleep and ignore her. He was still upset about being abandoned earlier. Qingtong, however, didn't realize that the man was actually awake. Xiao Qianming was waiting for Qingtong to explain, but his pride prevented him from asking. Unaware of his inner turmoil, Xiao Qianming was already planning his revenge. As soon as he entered the protective barrier, Qingtong embraced him, burying her face in his chest. He was startled by this sudden action. What are you doing? He asked, his voice muffled. She slowly raised her head, nuzzling his neck. Don't you like me being close to you? This stunned Ming Zun. Does she like me? He couldn't help but feel a thrill. He was now able to stay in her room. This was her private space, and the feeling was exhilarating. Qingtong continued her act. Why are you so stiff? Just relax. Yi Qianming was embarrassed. This was too much. He pleaded with her to let him go. Qingtong, however, teased him. Why? Don't you like it when I hold you like this? Who else can I do this with? Seeing his flustered expression, Ming Zun's face turned red, and he stammered, let go. Qingtong, however, had no intention of letting go. Suddenly, she kissed him on the forehead. Ming Zun was dumbfounded by this unexpected gesture. He reached up and touched his forehead, stunned. She's getting bolder, he thought. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's class with her. The man simply touched her arm, but Qingtong recoiled in fear. The searing pain made her cry out. A dark mark appeared on her arm, spreading rapidly. Seeing Qingtong injured, Xiao Qianming ordered the man to explain. However, the man just turned and left. It turned out that to attend classes with Qingtong, he had to switch between the roles of Wang Yi and pet. The dignified Ming Zun was now reduced to a pet. This fueled his suppressed rage, and he unleashed his killing intent. Qingtong, however, noticed the man's impending collapse. She reached out and stopped him. "This poison is nothing to me," she said, showing him the fading mark. Out of concern, however, she forgot about her other identity. Ziyi Gui Tong. Xiao Qianming revealed the man's constitution. His body is filled with countless toxins, intertwined in a delicate balance. He possesses the rare Wan du physique. Qingtong had read about this in ancient texts. A fully developed Wan du physique could manipulate toxins at will. Combined with powerful weapons and techniques, it was incredibly formidable. This made her even more interested in what kind of potential this so-called trash class held. Upon entering the classroom, Xiao Xiao greeted her and urged her to sit with her. Qingtong glanced at Xiao Qianming, puzzled. She hadn't seen him with Qingtong yesterday. Qingtong explained, "This is my beloved little treasure. He's very useful and obedient." This explanation left Xiao Xiao blushing and speechless. Xiao Qianming thought, "She's doing this on purpose to make me jealous." Yuan, who stormed into the classroom, glaring at Qingtong. He still hadn't figured out how Qingtong had broken his iron skin, and he wanted another chance to defeat her and cripple her. Qingtong, however, simply looked at him as if he were an idiot and flatly refused. She glanced at Xiao Qianming, daring him to try and steal something from her again. If he did, she would take action. As Yuan, who reached for Xiao Qianming, Qingtong grabbed his hand. In an instant, a jolt of pain shot through his arm, making him yelp. The instructor looked at Zunzu's pained expression with amusement. The man buried his face in Qingtong's chest. When the man returned to his residence as instructed by Qingtong, Feng Yu and Bei Qin immediately acknowledged Qingtong as their boss. Qingtong, however, just sighed. Qingtong had treated Chu Wenhao's injuries with medicine. However, someone overheard them. He glared at them menacingly. Qingtong simply pinched his fingers, instantly crippling his hand. Despite appreciating the man's help, she wouldn't tolerate him stealing her things. He needed her permission first. The man, his hand throbbing in pain, claimed he didn't know and apologized. This time, he had acted rashly only to save his sister. He then offered the medicine he had taken. The man, however, was more interested in Qingtong. He was aware of his own extraordinary physique, and Qingtong had crippled his hand with a single move. Qingtong ignored him and left with Chu Wenhao. Yi Qianming, observing them from the protective barrier, narrowed his eyes. "This kid, why does he feel so familiar? And why does it seem like I've seen him somewhere before?" Back in the dark sacred region, Yi Qianming paced restlessly, his hand on his hip. He instructed his subordinates to properly dispose of the body. He was now going to deal with those fools. Anyone who dared to lay a hand on Qingtong would not be spared. He declared, "It's time to return." Feng Yu and Bei Qin exchanged excited glances. Xiao Bei, however, was apprehensive. "Master, are you going back to that place?" Yi Qianming nodded, confirming his suspicions. Feng Yu and Bei Qin were overjoyed. At that moment, chaos erupted in the Qianyu Imperial Palace. The Imperial Guards protecting Bei Dao were overwhelmed, and the palace was under attack. The Qianyu Emperor was furious. Bei Jimang rushed to the Emperor's side for protection, but the Emperor was abducted and the treasury plundered. The Qianyu Emperor's rage resulted in a heart attack, and he collapsed. He had reached his limit, and could only summon the elders for help to stabilize the situation. Meanwhile, in the secret realm, Qingtong was filled with self-blame. "I almost played myself," she thought. Chanzu also berated her for being reckless. Qingtong looked like a wounded animal, filled with regret. Not only had she underestimated Yi Qianming, she had also fallen for his trap. Now, she was entangled with him. To make matters worse, she was now the one being pursued. The more she thought about it, the more flustered she became. Chanzu, seeing her distressed state, tried to comfort her. "Don't worry, master. That man is harmless." Qingtong, however, nervously paced back and forth. "That's easy for you to say. It's me he's after," she thought. She also recalled the old man's words, and his help in removing the curse. Could it be that man's name was Yi Qianming? She wondered. It was also the first time she realized the implications of Yi Qianming protecting her. "He's after me," she thought. This explains why He's been so persistent. He's not seeking revenge, He's interested. She suddenly had a strong urge to tie the man up. The next morning, Qingtong visited the Yang Yao market. She found a crowd gathered around, exclaiming, "Look at that handsome man." This prompted her to look back. She was stunned. Ming Zun was standing there in the Yang Yao market. Talk about playing with fire, she thought. He's practically asking for trouble. Seeing Ming Zun's arrival, Qingtong's intestines churned. Chen Zhu was also dumbfounded. He turned his head away, refusing to look. He's everywhere. Chen Zhu thought. I can't escape him. Is this fate? I should just give in. Qingtong wanted to give him a hard time. She put on a charming smile. Young master, you're quite the sight for sore eyes. Care to join me for a drink? Qingtong's words made Ming Zun's eyes widen. His trembling hands betrayed his nervousness. He was also overwhelmed by a sudden urge to flee. Fine, he agreed. Let's have a drink together. Qingtong's hand was clasped in his. He couldn't pull it away. A wave of coldness washed over Qingtong, sending shivers down her spine. Is he really, or is he just pretending? Don't tell me he has some hidden motive. She decided to stay put. Why not run? The man asked, puzzled. Qingtong replied casually, feigning innocence. Why would I run? I just arrived. Did you think I'd run away? Hearing her reply, he relaxed. Qingtong sat down, feeling increasingly uneasy. You mentioned raising something earlier. Yes, he replied. A beauty like you, I think anyone would desire to keep you. He gestured towards the caged exotic animals nearby. So, it was because he wanted a pet. That explained his repeated attempts to capture her. He even admitted it without hesitation. If it's this woman, as long as she doesn't cause trouble, I'll allow her to stay by my side, he thought. Qingtong was now slightly hesitant. What is he thinking? Maybe I should leave. Yi Qianming, he said, his gaze meeting hers. This startled Qingtong, who almost choked on her drink. How did he know my name? He's been searching for me all this time. But I told him to ignore those rumors. Could there be another reason? She quickly tried to change the subject. Why are you in the Qianyu Empire? What are you doing here? Yi Qianming looked at her with a sly smile. I'm here to capture someone, of course. He wanted to see her reaction. He even went so far as to accuse her of heinous crimes. Upon hearing that Yi Qianming was there to arrest her, Qingtong was relieved. If he truly intended to arrest her, he would have done so already. She must have been overthinking. Yi Qianming drank cup after cup, making Qingtong nervous. I want to see how long your eyes can last, he thought. Qingtong matched him drink for drink. After a while, Qingtong felt dizzy, and the effects of the alcohol finally hit her. As Yi Qianming offered her another drink, Qingtong repeatedly refused. The purpose of his trip was to protect her. Upon hearing this, Yi Qianming reached out. So, he's interested in men. He really is. Their fingers touched, sending a jolt through Yi Qianming's body. A strange sensation filled his heart. Yi Qianming's face flushed, and he looked away. He felt his heart racing. This shameless woman. She's doing this on purpose. I'll get my revenge one day. Qingtong pretended not to notice and skillfully examined his meridians. Still the same. Fragile. His physical strength was truly pathetic. At the same time, she couldn't identify the cause of his condition. It was truly bizarre and perplexing. He wasn't averse to being touched, but now, he felt a strange sensation. Qingtong couldn't understand why. The more she investigated, the more confused she became. Yi Qianming asked, how is the market doing? Qingtong replied, no problem. Inwardly, however, she was frustrated. Another fruitless attempt. Her eyes were about to give out, and she needed to restore her vision quickly. Just as she was about to excuse herself, the man stopped her. You're trying to run again, aren't you? He patted her shoulder. We agreed to drink until we're both drunk. Are you going back on your word? What's going on? Why won't he let me leave? She wondered. She could only blame her own mother. The man could see through her thoughts. Your eyes are about to give out. I'll wait until you collapse. Since she couldn't leave, she decided to join him. Qingtong now understood. She was trapped. How could she be so careless? Seeing her distress, Yi Qianming smiled inwardly. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach. I need to use the restroom. Yi Qianming's lips curled into a smile. No problem. I'll have bacon. No? Qingtong interrupted. Don't bother. I'll go with you. Qingtong now realized she'd fallen into his trap. How could she have been so foolish? Seeing her defeated expression, Yi Qianming's heart softened. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach again, groaning dramatically. It hurts, it really hurts. Yi Qianming's lips curled into a mischievous grin. It seems I have no choice but to trouble you. Bacon stared blankly, inwardly screaming, Master, you're so dramatic. Feng Yu, however, couldn't help but laugh. Master, you're hilarious. Yi Qianming suddenly stood up. Since Tong Tong insists, I'll go with you. This left Qingtong with no choice but to rely on Bacon. Please, little Bei. Bacon puffed out his chest. Don't worry, I'll keep a close eye on him. Yi Qianming smiled inwardly. This time, I'll see how you escape. After a while, he began to feel uneasy. Feng Yu reassured him, Don't worry, Master. We've taken precautions. He won't get into trouble. Yi Qianming, however, crushed the wine glass in his hand. Qingtong was still with Bacon. Yi Qianming's eyes turned cold. He sensed a murderous intent from Bacon. What was he thinking of doing? He grabbed Yi Qianming's hand, a gesture that made Yu Lao want to chop off Bacon's hand. Yi Qianming was annoyed by this, however. He placed the ring he was holding on the table. I'm going to bring you to a place, to meet some friends, he said. Yi Qianming was led away by this sudden proposal. They arrived at a room. Yi Qianming immediately felt a sense of unease. A group of men charged towards him. He was stunned by the scene, his eyes wide with shock. A surge of killing intent erupted from him. Turning to look for Qingtong, he found she had already vanished. The heroine had, once again, abandoned the hero. Hearing the explosions from behind him, the man was enraged, and the consequences were severe. Chunzu was also terrified, realizing that one day, he and Zhugan might end up together. Qingtong slapped the idiot. He was then ordered to retrieve all the refining equipment. Each piece of equipment was enormous, large enough to hold hundreds of people. Chunzu was amazed. How did she acquire so many high-grade tools? Qingtong, her face covered in peeling makeup, replied, Of course, it's for setting up a trap. Yi Qianming arrived at the designated location, his face flushed. Zitong, you just couldn't wait to get rid of me, could you? He accused. He suspected she had faked her distress. What are you talking about? Bacon and Feng Yu asked, bewildered. Master, what happened? Yi Qianming was also at a loss. Had been tricked again by that woman. She brought me to a brothel. Do you understand? He was enraged. Xiaobei was furious and swore to tear her into 8 pieces and torture her. This made Yi Qianming even angrier. How dare you speak of her like that? I won't tolerate it. Bacon instantly sensed something was amiss. Could it be that Master had feelings for Ziyi? Yi Qianming's outburst only confirmed his suspicions. He recalled Bacon and Feng Yu's conversation. Master likes Ziyi. He thought of the woman's brazen behavior, her carefree and mischievous attitude, her lively and dramatic expressions whenever she saw him. He couldn't deny it any longer. He was in love with that woman. Master, do you like her? Bacon asked tentatively. Feng Yu quickly covered his mouth. You'll get us killed if you speak so carelessly. Xiaobei was dragged away by the terrified Feng Yu. This brought Yi Qianming back to his senses. Like her, Feng Yu explained, if you find yourself constantly worrying about someone's well-being, and are easily angered by anything they do, then, Feng Yu believed this was love. He looked at Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming was suddenly enlightened. If I like her, then I must have her. That woman had made the first move. Since that was the case, he would make sure she stayed with him. He wouldn't let her escape now that he understood his feelings. Late that night, he appeared in the Qianyu Imperial Palace's underground chambers. Qingtong suddenly appeared in front of some ancient text. She quickly activated her formation, easily bypassing the defenses, and proceeded inside. Qingtong frowned. The Qianyu Imperial family is surprisingly cautious. They even set up a barrier here. It was a special energy barrier, activated only by royal blood. Chunzu thought they were stuck. Qingtong smiled slyly. There's more than one way in. Besides blood, there's also medicine. She took out some Shu Mi rings and casually tossed them inside. The next moment, the rings were blasted away. It turned out she was testing the explosives. She had tasked her subordinates to use the resources to refine Shu Mi rings, distributing them while she searched the treasury for the medicinal ingredients listed in the protected document. Time passed as she carefully added the ingredients according to the instructions. Chun Tzu skeptically asked, "Do you even know what you're doing?" Of course she did. She was following the ancient recipe to create medicine to help her grandfather recover. The most crucial step was to infuse the final product with the combined power of heaven and earth. Only then would the medicine reach its full potential. As she meticulously added the herbs, the roof of the room suddenly exploded. Both Qingtong and Chun Tzu's eyes widened in surprise. The Qian Xingguo was finally complete. Lao Sen cried out in excitement as the cauldron exploded. Chun Tzu, having experienced countless explosions, now laughed heartily. I haven't seen Qingtong fail this spectacularly in a while. He didn't notice a figure descending from the sky. Without warning, it pinned him to the ground, and a blood-curdling scream echoed. That night, the medicine was finally refined. Qingtong opened her eyes abruptly, seeing the completed medicine. She cried out excitedly, "It's finally done." Chun Tzu also sighed in relief. After countless failed attempts and wasted ingredients, he no longer had to live in fear. As Qingtong prepared to consume the medicine in one gulp, Xiao Zhu suddenly fell onto the table. The medicine she needed to cure her eyes was also ready. Chun Tzu frantically searched for it, prompting Qingtong to join the search. Amidst the chaos, she discovered a letter. It was a recommendation from Deepening Sheng Yuan Academy. Recalling the old man from Heiyu, Xiao Zhu assumed he must have been impressed with Qingtong's talent and sent her the recommendation. Suddenly, a voice startled her. Several figures flashed into the room. Qingtong was shocked to see Luo Qingtong. Meanwhile, Xiaobei was frantically searching for Feng Yu. Ever since their last encounter, Feng Yu had removed the seal. Now, traces of energy from the Juyu Huang realm lingered in the river. Unable to swim, he panicked. Suddenly, a splash made him think Feng Yu had. He turned around to find Zhuofei smiling at him. Remembering what happened at Dai Sifang, Xiaobei shuddered. Zhuofei, flustered, explained he was about to rescue him, but Feng Yu stopped him. Feng Yu angrily demanded, "Why did you hurt Xiaobei? If anything happens to him, you'll pay." After all, he was Bei Ke's subordinate. Feng Yu, however, was mercilessly shoved aside. He didn't deserve to be near Xiaobei. Suddenly, Xiaobei emerged from the water. Noticing tears in Feng Yu's eyes, Feng Yu pulled Xiaobei into an embrace. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left." Seeing Feng Yu cry, Xiaobei felt a pang of guilt. He didn't understand this feeling. Zhuofei watched them, a warmth spreading in his heart. However, seeing them embrace, filled Feng Yu with an unknown jealousy. Xiaobei was also startled by Zhuofei's actions, his eyes wide with surprise. He couldn't comprehend the trauma Dai Sifang must have inflicted. He forced a smile and explained. Only then did Xiaobei realize he had overreacted. Since he couldn't swim, he asked Zhuofei to check if there were any Juyu Huang realm remnants in the water. Feng Yu cursed Xiaobei under his breath. Just as Zhuofei entered the water, Xiaobei suddenly pushed him. Feng Yu reacted instinctively. As Xiaobei watched in shock, Feng Yu lifted a massive rock and threw it into the water. Zhuofei, submerged, was oblivious to the danger. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Feng Yu had gathered his men and surrounded the Luo residence. It turned out the Wang clan's army had failed to capture the crown prince. Instead, they were threatened by Qingtong, who held him hostage. The Wang clan reported this to Qian Yu. Yu Wenzu pleaded with the emperor, who ordered him to rescue the prince and destroy the Luo residence. The man stood before the Luo residence. The formations set by Qingtong were easily dispelled. With a wave of his hand, they shattered, and spiritual energy surged from within. The man raised his hand, a cold, ruthless expression on his face. He ordered his men, "Leave no survivors." He stormed into the Luo residence, targeting Luo Lao Yizi. Zhan Ayu rushed towards him, only to be swatted away like a fly. The last offender was dealt with just as he was about to enter. He triggered a formation. To his surprise, this small Luo family residence was so heavily fortified. He channeled spiritual energy, summoning a massive energy shield. It was his signature move, Yijian Cheng Cheng. In a flash, a sword beam from the Luo family sword shattered the shield. Qingtong, disguised as Ziyi, appeared before him. Countless figures emerged from the Luo residence. He ordered his men to prepare, while he handled the intruders himself. Chun Tzu worried about Qingtong's health after she consumed so much potent medicine. Qingtong, however, brushed it off. The man was surprised to see Ziyi Guitong defending the Luo family. Ziyi's identity was sensitive. He approached cautiously. "Is there anything I can help you with?" His dual swords transformed into deadly weapons. A chilling killing intent radiated from Qingtong, enveloping the Luo residents. The man revealed his identity. "I am Yu Wenzu of the Qianyu imperial family." Hearing this, Qingtong's killing intent surged. The sword technique he used was effortlessly countered by Qingtong. As the mist dissipated, the man's protective armor was revealed. Xiaozu warned, "Careful, master. That's Wu Di armor." The man laughed maniacally. "A mere armor. I'm not afraid." His attack struck the man, but failed to injure him. He raised his hand and punched Qingtong, sending her flying. A ferocious tiger materialized behind him, spiritual energy surging. The tiger lunged at Qingtong. Chunzu, terrified, flew out from his hiding place, yelling, "Master! Help!" He wanted to assist, but Qingtong ordered him to stay back. He was curious about the formations, and wanted to see if the Yinhun Muse would attribute could absorb power in this spirit-rich land. Qingtong watched the approaching tiger. "You're seriously injured and still using spiritual power. You're courting death." Her red pupils glowed. This was a truly ruthless gambler. Spiritual energy flowed into her sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Fa Ju. An immense force slammed into the tiger's paw. The tiger roared in pain. The next day, several uninvited guests gathered at the Luo residence gate. The Luo family will be ruined by Luo Qingtong. If you know what's good for you, switch sides and follow second miss. Those who had previously acted arrogant, dismissing Luo Qingtong as useless, now groveled and pleaded for mercy. It turned out that after taking care of matters at Juwu Mountain, Qingtong had returned to Luo Fu. With a single glance, the man was instantly subdued by her tears. Qingtong poured the yixiang he brought over them, and instructed the war slaves, "Since they want to join us, let them have their fill." Then, she ordered them locked up. "Go tell Luo Xinning that she and her mother will pay for what they've done to me and the Luo family, with interest." Back in the Luo residence, Luo Lao Yizi's face was ashen and lifeless. Looking at the state of the house, he weakly asked, What happened?" Everyone inside knelt, terrified. The steward explained that Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation was rapidly fading. He would soon become a cripple. These words deeply saddened Qingtong. Touching Luo Lao Yizi's pale face, she understood his pain. His cultivation had already fallen to the 6th level of Wuzong, and was still declining. This enraged Qingtong. Who could have come up with such a cruel and insidious plan? The steward recounted the whole story. It was Luo Xinning's scheme. After Luo Lao Yizi collapsed, she declared herself the head of the Luo family, spreading rumors that Qingtong was to blame for their misfortune. However, Qingtong didn't believe it. Luo Xinning didn't possess such cunning. It was definitely orchestrated by the Qianyu imperial family. She was just a pawn. Luo Lao Yizi suddenly stirred. Seeing Qingtong safe and unharmed, Luo Lao Yizi's heart was at ease. He blamed himself for his recklessness, which led to his coma, and caused Qingtong so much worry. Seeing everything, Qingtong reassured him, "Grandpa, don't worry. I'll take care of it." Luo Lao Yizi chuckled. "Losing a bit of cultivation is nothing. As long as you're safe, it's no big deal." Qingtong's eyes welled up. Luo Lao Yizi did everything for her. How could she repay him? She held his hand. "Don't worry, Grandpa. I can protect the Luo family. I'll help you recover your strength, and you'll be stronger than ever." Meanwhile, at Luo Xinning's residence, a plaque bearing the name Luo Fu hung above the gate. Inside, Bai Lian's family celebrated. They'd taken over the Luo family, and were toasting Qingtong's demise. The sound of galloping horses interrupted their festivities. By order of eldest Miss, we're here to arrest the second branch and confiscate their property. Bai Lian's mother was furious. The war slave held up the imperial decree, a sight that sent shivers down their spines. Bai Lian was terrified. She hadn't expected a simple guard to be a 5th level woohoo. Why does Luo Qingtong command such powerful guards? The war slave, seeing their hesitation, stepped forward. Bai Lian and the others scrambled back in fear. Bai Lian's eyes darted around, and she pushed her own father towards the war slaves. In the ensuing chaos, the war slaves easily captured Bai Lian's father. While retreating, Bai Lian threw her maidservants at the guards one by one. He had clearly given up all hope. Screams of terror and outrage echoed from the Luo residence entrance. The men were imprisoned, but one, Luo, pleaded for release. He was Wang Xifeng's loyal subordinate, and behind him stood the Qianyu emperor. Qingtong learned from Zhan Enyu that Bai Lian had escaped to the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Arriving at the dungeon, she overheard the man's pleas. Qingtong mocked him, "Your father's being used as a shield, and you still expect him to save you." The man, however, believed it was all Ning Er's doing. His gaze turned cold. He would not spare anyone who had harmed his grandfather, especially those pulling the strings. He also insulted the man, calling him spineless for sacrificing his own father. Luo, oblivious, still wanted to argue. Qingtong produced a few pills. The first war slave was ordered to give them to Luo. She then ordered the decoy's release. Luo's face paled at this. As he swallowed the pills, his strength surged. However, using this power would cause a dangerous backlash. If he didn't, he would turn into a monster. Luo screamed desperately, "Ning Er, I won't forgive you." Qingtong ignored him. Bai Lian was next. Late that night, Qingtong was in her study, reading. Zhan Enyu reported that Luo Shenning was back at the Luo residence, escorted by a Qianyu branch academy instructor. Strangely, the instructor seemed extremely loyal to Qingtong. Intrigued, Qingtong wanted to see for herself. She ordered Zhan Enyu to create a list of all the gifts she had received from the royal family and nobility, intending to send them to Bai Lian as a gift. In her room, Bai Lian was pacing anxiously. She was convinced Qingtong wouldn't let her go. Her father's disappearance was also Qingtong's fault. Chu Laoma wasn't around, but if he dared to show up and make trouble, she'd make him regret it. Bai Lian put on a pitiful act, earning Chu Lao's sympathy. He thought she was too kind and easily bullied by Qingtong. Suddenly, a loud crash startled them. The Luo family plaque was shattered on the ground. Qingtong, mounted on a tall horse, ordered the war slaves to destroy the plaque. She slapped Bai Lian, whose face was caked with makeup, for impersonating a Luo. The war slaves eagerly obeyed. "Stop." This plaque was a gift from the Qianyu branch academy to Miss. Qingtong, however, was relentless. Bai Lian reappeared, putting on a dramatic show. "Big sister, what are you doing?" Their eyes met. The Luo family plaque was the only thing left. "Since you've been expelled, are you still worthy of this plaque?" Qingtong had a new plaque brought in. The two characters Dao Fu instantly enraged Bai Lian. Fear and fury consumed her. "I'm your sister. How dare you humiliate me like this? Have you no conscience?" Qingtong only grew angrier at Bai Lian's fake innocence. Bai Lian wailed dramatically, "Big sister, you're so heartless. You threw me out, and you're still after me. Look what you've done to the Luo family. Grandpa's failing health is all thanks to you." Her acting was truly Oscar-worthy. Qingtong would have been fine if Luo Lao Yizi hadn't been mentioned, but his name only fueled her fury. Zhan Enyu stepped forward. "What have you done? Do you even dare to tell the truth?" Bai Lian's demeanor shifted drastically. One moment she was fiercely defending her disciple and showering him with affection. The next, she was slapped hard across the face. It turned out that Qingtong had not only exposed her scandalous deeds, but also presented irrefutable evidence. Just moments ago, when confronted, Bai Lian had shamelessly hidden behind Chu Lao. He couldn't bear to see his beloved disciple being humiliated. In Qingtong's eyes, Bai Lian was an arrogant bully, flaunting the fifth prince's favor and causing trouble. Qingtong frowned. "Who is this mutt? The Luo family's affairs are none of his business." Qingtong's disrespectful words were twisted by Bai Lian, who revealed that Chu Lao was a recruitment instructor from the Qianyu branch academy. Qingtong inwardly mocked the old fool for being deceived by Bai Lian and acting as a shield. He must have rocks for brains, she thought. Qingtong scoffed, showing no respect. This infuriated Chu Lao, who threatened to teach her a lesson. Qingtong, however, remained unfazed. While Chun Zhu desperately wanted to argue with the old man, Qingtong stopped him. She wasn't interested in fighting and preferred to watch the drama. She instructed the war slaves to bring out the account books. "Since Chu Lao wants to defend her, then let's settle these accounts on behalf of your beloved disciple." With that, she threw Zhao Mu into Bai Lian's arms, causing Bai Lian to panic. When Chu Lao saw the accounts, his heart dropped. He tried to intervene, but it was too late. He insisted that Qingtong had fabricated the accounts, claiming none of the items listed were real. Qingtong, who knew Bai Lian inside and out, challenged, "Then do you dare let me search your room?" The war slaves were ordered to the residence. Bai Lian's hopes rested entirely on Chu Lao. Her heart pounded in her chest as her face paled. Those were all gifts you gave me. This confession sealed her fate. Qingtong didn't hesitate. Those were gifts from the Qianyu imperial family. Why would I give them to you? Do you want me to return them? Bai Lian was speechless, tears streaming down her face. You're just jealous that I'm more talented than you. Suddenly, she was interrupted by a shout. Why are you using your mother's money? Bai Lian claimed that Qingtong had forced her to accept those countless treasures. Qingtong was at her wit's end. Am I insane? Forcing you to take treasure? Am I crazy, or are you? She ordered the war slaves to confiscate everything. Anyone who dared to interfere would be considered an enemy of the Qianyu imperial family. Seeing that her plan had failed, Bai Lian pleaded with Chu Lao for help. Without hesitation, Chu Lao stood. Her insistence is nothing more than a ploy to retrieve the recommendation and the family heirloom. He also accused Qingtong of disrespecting the imperial family and declared that she would never enter Qianyu Academy. Qingtong, however, remained indifferent. That thing's been used. I don't want it. Getting into the Qianyu Academy relies on ability, not on being a Luo. She stared at Chu Lao's jade pendant. Isn't this the engagement token the fifth prince gave me? This sent Chu Lao into a rage. He ripped off the pendant and yelled at Bai Lian, didn't you say the Qianyu imperial family gave it to you? Bai Lian was speechless, her face completely drained of color. Qingtong burst into laughter. This is what I call reaching one's limit. I don't know about you. She slapped Bai Lian. Chu Lao had never felt such humiliation. Qingtong, never one to miss a chance to gloat, clapped her hands gleefully. Throwing the jade pendant aside, she left triumphantly. She loved seeing others struggle while she remained untouchable. Xiaozu appeared, clapping his hooves admiringly. Suddenly, the Juyu Huang realm seal began to tremble. Qingtong was taken aback. Xiaozu was startled. Why was the seal, which had been quiet for so long, suddenly acting up? Qingtong was in the middle of lecturing Bai Lian, but vanished instantly. It seemed something had happened to the Juyu Huang realm seal. The commotion was due to the man's return. Yi Qianming was completely preoccupied with Qingtong. Back in the dark sacred region, a crowd of people bowed before the returning sovereign. His return immediately calmed the turbulent atmosphere. Feng Yu and Bai Shou exchanged knowing glances. Yu Lao teased him, I thought you were lured away by that invitation. The man, however, simply raised his hand, revealing the striking dragon fang sword on his finger. This surprised Yu Lao. He hadn't actually believed the man would return to the dark sacred region. Yu Lao, his eyes fixated on the ring, questioned, don't tell me you came back just for that ring. So you were really hooked by that little invitation, huh? Xiaobei, seizing the opportunity, boldly declared, that invitation wasn't from a woman. Just as Xiaobei was about to blurt out an explanation, Yi Qianming glared at him, silencing him. Yu Lao, observing the man's flustered reaction, pressed on, so that little invitation really did capture your attention. Xiaobei desperately tried to deny it. Feng Yu interrupted, explaining that Qingtong had likely misunderstood Ming Zun's intentions. From her point of view, he was probably just pursuing her. This explanation only frustrated Yi Qianming further. I not only told her my name. We even bathed together. I let her touch me freely, and I even gave her the Juyu Huang realm sword. What more does she want? Really? Feng Yu's lips twitched. This clueless sovereign. Feng Yu tried again. Perhaps Qingtong thinks that your special treatment is just admiration, not romantic interest. Yi Qianming stubbornly refused to admit his feelings. Do you expect me to confess? I, the dignified Ming Zun, how can I say such things? Enough, Feng Yu sighed, looking away. Dejected, he wondered where had gone wrong. Seeing the increasingly somber expression on the sovereign's face, Feng Yu suggested, perhaps Qingtong's perspective is different. She might see your royal status as simply a pursuer. This advice forced Yi Qianming to reconsider. How could he make the woman return his feelings? At that moment, Qingtong was wandering the red light district. The fake ring Shed crafted impressed even Chun Zhu. Shed designed the ring to absorb her spiritual energy and alter its aura, rendering it undetectable. Once the fake ring was complete, she resumed her Qingtong disguise. Chun Zhu was worried. Are you trying to get caught? You're practically advertising your Qingtong identity. Qingtong, however, had her own plan. After emptying the Qianyu imperial treasury, she needed to sell the loot quickly. Chunzu muttered, "You're playing with fire." Suddenly, she overheard people discussing the Qianyu imperial family's protector, Bei Dao, being challenged. The imperial family, in their pursuit of the culprit, had called upon Chu Lao, who was subsequently gravely injured by a mysterious Sheng Zun expert, causing widespread fear of Ming Zun. Qingtong and Chunzu were both taken aback. When did he become so strong? Chunzu scoffed, "Sheng Zun. Yeah, right. In his dreams," but after careful consideration, Qingtong realized that only that man was capable of injuring the imperial family's protector and scaring Chu Lao. A chilling thought struck her. Juwu Mountain Ming Zun, could they be one and the same? Qingtong's blood ran cold. Since Yi Qianming had taken care of the stolen goods, she should leave them for him. Not far away, Jizun assassins were observing Qingtong. Knowing she was being followed, she headed towards the main city. The assassins were confused when she entered their territory. She suddenly appeared on the city wall. "Looking for me?" With a casual wave, she activated a seemingly ordinary confinement formation. The assassins merely scoffed. Killing this woman would be a piece of cake. Qingtong observed them, wondering why the Jizun assassin guild was targeting her, Ziyi Guitong. The assassins were unaware that the formation was a mere diversion. She was looking for an excuse to kill. A sinister smile curved her lips. She summoned a sword. The assassins, initially unconcerned, were suddenly on high alert. Before they could react, Qingtong vanished, a blur of color. Needles rained from the sky. Their leader was instantly turned into a pincushion. Qingtong coldly questioned, "One last chance. Who sent you?" The assassins were shocked by her power. A Wu Jiang wielding such strength. Qingtong, giving them no time to respond, prepared to strike with her dual swords. Chunzu, watching the battle, was utterly confused. She had divine weapons and king-level power, so why was she letting herself be pressured? Qingtong was growing increasingly frustrated. Her strength was fading fast, and she could collapse at any moment. Suddenly, Zhu Gan was filled with regret. Remembering Yi Qianming's instructions to protect Qingtong, he realized this woman was crucial. They were doomed if she was harmed. He channeled his spiritual fire, which burned intensely. A red-haired youth materialized. Qingtong also noticed Chun Zu's transformation. Just as the youth prepared to attack, a cold voice cut through the air. "Don't interfere." He, too, was taken aback. It turned out he was the mastermind, using the assassins as pawns. A grey-robed man leaped down. The assassins were stunned. Why was she choosing to fight here? Spiritual energy coursed through his sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Bo Qian. Yi Qianming was the one who had hired the assassins. Trapped within the formation, the man screamed in pain, his struggles futile. Qingtong smirked. She hadn't expected the techniques Yi Qianming taught her to be so effective. Chunzu, crying, rushed over. "Master!" She almost died. "Do you even care?" She pinched his face. "I sensed a power surge just now. Did you think she was actually going to die? Besides, why would I care about that idiot?" Qingtong's strength had partially recovered, reaching mid-level Sheng Zun. She felt uneasy. If she didn't recover soon, she would be in grave danger. Suddenly, Chunzu yelled, "What are you doing?" Zhan Enyu anxiously explained that the commotion was due to the disappearance of a Qianyu Branch Academy instructor. He cautiously added, glancing at Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming's gaze was fixed on Qingtong. Qingtong's heart sank. Suddenly, inspiration struck. "I'll handle the instructor's rescue. You go after them." Seeing Qingtong's delicate frame, he realized she truly cared. Qingtong grabbed the man's hand. "Don't bother. His hurt." Their eyes met, and Yi Qianming froze. Qingtong tore open the man's clothes. He, the mighty Ming Zun, was being undressed by a woman. Not only was he being felt up by a female rogue, but she also had the audacity to look at him with a wronged expression. Wei Qin's eyes were wide with disbelief. He had never witnessed anything so scandalous. Yi Qianming was seething. This woman had been playing him from the start. Every encounter was a new form of manipulation. Qingtong blushed, admitting her guilt. She gently touched his meridians, a familiar sensation that made Yi Qianming tremble. The areas she touched felt warm. He didn't understand what she was doing. Qingtong, however, inwardly cursed him. "Are your meridians made of iron? The energy can't flow through." As her fingers trailed lower, Yi Qianming protested, "Hey! What are you doing?" Qingtong feigned innocence. "What? I'm just trying to heal you. Are you accusing me of something?" Suddenly, Feng Yu was attacked by an assassin. Qingtong sensed the danger and realized they were out of time. Her red pupils flashed. Chunzu, like a cannonball, launched himself at the assassins. "Stop her!" Chunzu's panicked voice echoed from inside the barrier. "She's insane. They are all at least in Sheng level." Qingtong used the Tong Shu. Tong Guang Hua Shu. The assassins cried out in agony. Feng Yu attacked recklessly, unafraid of death. Yi Qianming observed the scene coldly. Is this really all she's capable of? Chunzu was terrified by the sudden brutality. Qingtong yelled, "If you can't stop them, they'll cook you alive. I didn't raise you to be useless. Get to work." Chunzu, shedding his usual laziness, unleashed his spiritual power, crackling with intensity. Qingtong said, "Make it quick. We don't want to hurt them too badly." Yi Qianming's meridians had already been tampered with. Chunzu transformed, his purpled spiritual power taking the form of a giant dragon, coiling around the assassins. Chunzu's intervention turned the tide. Feng Yu struck down one of the assassins, who was then grabbed by another. "Quick! Kill the target." To their surprise, the assassin refused to die. Sensing the danger, Yi Qianming urged Qingtong to escape. Qingtong looked at him. Could she really abandon him? Seeing her hesitation, Yi Qianming's resolve solidified. He would rather die than see her captured. Could he really just leave her? He had tricked and harmed her countless times. Yet, she always forgave him. He could easily kill her with his power. Qingtong suddenly asked, "Do you really not resent me? After everything I've done? After putting you in so much danger?" Yi Qianming sincerely replied, "No matter what, it was my own misjudgment. Why would I blame you?" A pang of sadness struck Qingtong. The assassins closed in. Qingtong seemed to have reached a decision. "Close your eyes," she instructed, determination flashing in her eyes. Yi Qianming, pretending to be oblivious, couldn't understand what she was planning. He prepared to unleash his power. This worried Qingtong. This man was such a pain. She ripped off her mask, and pulled him into a tight embrace. Their lips met, and the man's body trembled. Yi Qianming didn't understand why she was transferring her remaining spiritual power to him. The transferred power suddenly surged back. "She wants my power." He pushed her away. Realizing what had happened, Yi Qianming took the initiative. Qingtong was overwhelmed by the sudden surge of energy. Uncontrollable spiritual power coursed through her veins. The assassins were stunned by the sudden power and hesitated. "We shouldn't kill her. It might be dangerous." Zhu Gan pulled Yi Qianming out of harm's way. He casually waved his sleeve. The approaching assassins were instantly incinerated. He glanced at Yi Qianming. "Teach me your strongest move." He was like a volcano on the verge of eruption. Yi Qianming, due to his unique constitution, had only cultivated one technique, and only he could use it. Qingtong, however, ignored his protests and urged him. Seeing her desperation, he didn't hesitate. Red trees materialized, their branches reaching for the heavens, a perfect fusion of offense and defense. Zan Qianzhe. Qianxing Kei Yi, Di Lai. As the formation took shape, the movements of the Zan Qianzhu were projected before Qingtong. Qingtong's eyes lit up in understanding. She grabbed two swords. First move of Zan Qianzhu. Zhuqian. The earth and sky trembled with this single strike. A world-splitting power erupted, instantly obliterating the semi-Sheng assassins. This scene stunned Bei Qin and Chunzu. Feng Yu was also shocked. That's Master's ultimate move. Ziyi knows it. Cheng Yang disappeared, and Qingtong collapsed. Yi Qianming, watching Qingtong execute the technique, felt his heart clench. This woman, she's mine. The poison in his body was purged by the force of the attack. His gaze was fixed on her. Qingtong, exhausted, leaned against him. It was the first time she had leaned on him so unguardedly, like a small, tired animal. Qingtong hadn't anticipated the man's immense power. Just a casual use of that technique was so devastating. If only you were weaker, she sighed. Yi Qianming was surprised. Weaker? Isn't it better to be strong in this world? For the first time, Qingtong revealed her true feelings. If you were weaker, I could keep you by my side and wouldn't have to. She trailed off, her voice barely a whisper. Yi Qianming's eyes widened. She wants me to stay with her. She really does, but you're too strong, too strong for me to control. I hate feeling so helpless. Yi Qianming was ecstatic. She wants to keep me with her. But she's hesitant because I'm too powerful. He boldly declared, my power might be overwhelming, but you're welcome to stay by my side. Qingtong gave a wry smile. His words seemed too good to be true. Thank you, Zunzu. She moved closer, resting her head against his chest. His body stiffened. Yi Qianming didn't notice her discomfort, lost in thought. He was conflicted. Why is it so hard for me to be close to her? Could it be him actually? Xiaobei interrupted his thoughts, excitedly pointing out that Feng Yu was staring at them. He winked. See? This is love. Zhan Enyu, on the other hand, found the scene utterly repulsive. They are brothers. This is disgusting. I can't bear to watch. Qingtong pulled out a nourishing pill and offered it to Yi Qianming. He opened his mouth and swallowed it obediently. Only Qingtong possessed such a pill in the entire continent. Who would have thought the ruthless Ming Zun would display such tenderness? This scene was even more unbearable for Yu Wenmo, who seethed with jealousy. His spiritual body began to solidify. This medicine is a modified version of an ancient formula. I'm the first one to try it, he thought. Yi Qianming's expression turned serious. He warned him to keep the medicine refining a secret. He was to use the Ziyi identity for everything. Should any problems arise, he would take full responsibility. Qingtong was touched by his concern and nodded, tears welling in her eyes. It was the second time he had shown such care. The first was regarding the Qianyang Mi. This time, it was genuine. His heart pounded in his chest. Yi Qianming, with a serious look, promised to protect her. He didn't notice her tears. She suddenly kissed his cheek, startling him. Looking at him, she whispered, thank you. Her sincerity made Yi Qianming blush. He stammered, telling her to let go. Meanwhile, at the Dongli Kingdom Palace, the man paced anxiously, plotting against Shen Fa. Liu Wengyi was troubled. They were on the brink of defeat. Suddenly, applause echoed through the hall. Qingtong had appeared without warning. Her presence shocked the prince, who ordered his men to attack and kill her. An eerie silence fell over the room. No one moved to obey the prince's command. They simply froze. These useless idiots. He thought furiously. Do I have to do everything myself? Why not just kill her? Do you need my permission? He was also enraged. How dare these insignificant ants defy him? No wonder he couldn't find her. She was hiding. He grabbed Yi Qianming's hand. Let her go. I'll help you. Seeing Qingtong's terrified expression, his heart softened. Don't worry. I'm here. He patted her head gently. Xiao Qianming glared at him. Don't you have anyone else to flirt with? Do you have to seduce everyone you see? Are you that desperate for attention? He thought angrily. Hearing this, Qingtong was filled with murderous intent. Countless dark figures surrounded them, forcing them to kneel before Qingtong. She pulled out the antidote and offered it. Yi Qianming, however, stopped her, demanding to know what she was doing. This was not allowed. Embarrassed, Ming Zun raised his hands in surrender. Zhan Enyu quickly swallowed the antidote. This appeased Yi Qianming, who then began to lecture him. He was curious why Qingtong had done that. She explained that it would turn them into her spies, and also serve as a warning to whoever was behind the attack. To teach her a lesson, Zunzu decided to pretend to be asleep and ignore her. He was still upset about being abandoned earlier. Qingtong, however, didn't realize he was awake. Xiao Qianming longed for Qingtong to explain herself, but his pride held him back. Unaware of his inner turmoil, Xiao Qianming was already plotting his revenge. He entered the protective barrier, and Qingtong immediately embraced him, nuzzling her face against his chest. This surprised him. What are you doing? He mumbled. She looked up at him, her face close to his. Don't you like it when I'm close to you? This stunned Ming Zun. She likes me. He felt a thrill course through him. He was now allowed to stay in her room. This was her personal space, and it felt incredibly intimate. Qingtong continued her charade. Relax. Why are you so stiff? Yi Qianming was flustered. This was too much. He pleaded with her to let him go. Qingtong, however, teased, why? Don't you like me holding you like this? Who else can I be this close to? Seeing his embarrassed expression, Mingzun's face reddened, and he stammered, let go. Qingtong had no intention of releasing him. She suddenly kissed his forehead, catching him off guard. He reached up and touched the spot where she'd kissed him, stunned. She's becoming more and more daring, he thought. I can't wait for tomorrow's class with her. The man merely brushed her arm, but Qingtong cried out in pain. A dark mark appeared on her arm and spread rapidly. Seeing Qingtong injured, Xiao Qianming demanded an explanation. The man, however, simply turned and left. To attend classes with Qingtong, he was forced to switch between the roles of Wang Yi and pet. The dignified Mingzun had been reduced to a pet. This fueled his suppressed rage, which he released in a wave of killing intent. Qingtong, however, noticed that the man was about to collapse. She reached out and stopped him. This poison is nothing, she said, showing him the fading mark. However, in her concern, she forgot her other identity. Ziyi Gui Tong. Xiao Qianming revealed the man's constitution. His body is filled with countless interwoven toxins, maintaining a precarious balance. He possesses the rare Wan du physique. Qingtong had read about it in ancient texts. A fully developed Wan du physique could freely manipulate toxins. Combined with powerful techniques and weaponry, it was a force to be reckoned with. This made her eager to see what kind of hidden talents the so-called trash class possessed. As soon as they entered the classroom, Su Xiaoxiao greeted her and invited her to sit together. Qingtong glanced at Xiao Qianming, confused. She hadn't seen him with her yesterday. Qingtong explained, "This is my precious little darling. He's very useful and well-behaved." Su Xiaoxiao blushed, unsure how to respond. Xiao Qianming fumed inwardly, "She's saying that to make me jealous." Yuan, who barged into the classroom, glaring at Qingtong. He still hadn't figured out how she'd broken his iron skin defense, and he wanted another chance to defeat and cripple her. Qingtong, however, just looked at him like he was an idiot and refused. She glanced at Xiao Qianming, daring him to try stealing from her again. If he did, she would take action. As Yuan, who reached for Xiao Qianming, Qingtong caught his hand. A searing pain shot up his arm, making him cry out. The instructor watched with a smirk as Zunzu's face contorted in pain. Yuan, who buried his face in Qingtong's chest. When the man returned to his residence, as Qingtong had instructed, Feng Yu and Beiqin immediately bowed, acknowledging her as their leader. Qingtong merely sighed. She then treated Chu Wenhao's injuries. Someone, however, overheard them. He glared at them. Qingtong effortlessly crushed his hand with a single squeeze. Though grateful for the man's attempt to help, she wouldn't tolerate him stealing. He needed her permission. The man, clutching his throbbing hand, claimed he hadn't known and apologized profusely. He had acted impulsively, wanting to save his sister. He then offered the medicine he had been trying to steal. This man, however, was more interested in Qingtong. He was aware of his own extraordinary physique, yet Qingtong had effortlessly crippled him. Qingtong ignored him and left with Chu Wenhao. Yi Qianming, observing them from within the protective barrier, narrowed his eyes. Why does this child look so familiar? Where have I seen him before? Back at the dark sacred region, Yi Qianming gathered his men, instructing them to dispose of the bodies. He was going after those fools now. Anyone who dared to harm Qingtong would face his wrath. He declared, "It's time to return." Feng Yu and Beiqin were ecstatic. Xiao Bei, however, asked anxiously, "Master, are we returning to that place?" Yi Qianming confirmed his suspicions. Feng Yu and Beiqin were overjoyed. Meanwhile, the Qianyu Imperial Palace was in chaos. The Imperial Guards protecting Beidao were overwhelmed, and the palace under attack. The Emperor was furious. Bei Jimang rushed to the Emperor's side, but he was abducted, and the treasury plundered. The Qianyu Emperor's rage brought on a heart attack, and he collapsed. He had reached his limit, and could only summon the eldest to stabilize the situation. Meanwhile, in the secret realm, Qingtong berated herself. "I almost got myself killed." Chanzu also scolded her for her recklessness. Qingtong looked like a kicked puppy, filled with regret. Not only had she fallen for Yi Qianming's trap, but she was now entangled with him. And to make matters worse, she was now the one being hunted. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. Chanzu, seeing her misery, tried to comfort her. "Don't worry, master. He's harmless." Qingtong gave him a look. "Easy for you to say. He's after me." She also suddenly remembered the words of the old man, who helped remove her curse. Was that man's name Yi Qianming? She realized the implications of Yi Qianming protecting her. He's been after me all this time. That's why he's been so persistent. Not for revenge, but because he's interested. She felt an overwhelming urge to tie the man up. The next morning, Qingtong went to the Yangyao market. She saw a crowd gathered, exclaiming, "He's so handsome." She glanced back, and froze. Ming Zun was standing there, in the Yangyao market. He's really asking for trouble. Playing with fire, she thought. Seeing him, Qingtong felt her stomach churn. Chun Zhu was equally dumbfounded. He turned away. He's everywhere. He thought. I can't escape him. This must be fate. I give up. Qingtong wanted to give him a hard time. She put on a seductive smile. Young master, you're quite a sight. Care to join me for a drink? Her words made Ming Zun's eyes widen. His trembling hands betrayed his nervousness. He also felt a sudden urge to flee. All right, he agreed. Let's have a drink. His hand was clasped in hers, and he couldn't pull away. A wave of coldness washed over Qingtong. Is he really? Or is he just playing games? What's his motive? She decided to stay. Why aren't you running? He asked, puzzled. Qingtong, feigning innocence, replied casually, run. Why would I run? I just got here. Did you think I'd run? Hearing her answer, he relaxed. Qingtong sat, growing increasingly uneasy. You mentioned raising something earlier. Yes, he said. A beauty like you, anyone would want to keep you. He gestured towards the cages of exotic animals. So, it was because he wanted a pet. This explained his constant attempts to capture her. He even confessed without hesitation. If it's her, and as long as she behaves, he'll let her stay. Qingtong hesitated. What is he thinking? I should leave. He locked eyes with her. Yi Qianming. Qingtong choked on her drink. How does he know my name? He's been looking for me. But I told him to dismiss those rumors. Could there be another reason? She quickly changed the subject. What are you doing in the Qianyu Empire? Yi Qianming gave her a sly look. Capturing someone, of course. He wanted to see how she would react. He went as far as accusing her of terrible crimes. Learning that Yi Qianming was there to arrest her, Qingtong felt a sense of relief. If he really wanted to arrest her, he would have done so already. She must have been overthinking. Yi Qianming continued to drink, making Qingtong nervous. I want to see how long your eyes can hold out. Qingtong matched him drink for drink. After a while, she started to feel the effects of the alcohol, and her vision blurred. As Yi Qianming offered her another drink, Qingtong repeatedly declined. His true motive was to protect her. Yi Qianming, realizing this, reached out. So, he likes men. He really does. Their fingers brushed. A strange sensation filled Yi Qianming's chest. He blushed and looked away. His heart raced. This shameless woman. She's deliberately teasing me. I'll have my revenge. Qingtong, however, skillfully checked his pulse. Still the same. Weak. His constitution was truly pathetic. At the same time, she still couldn't identify the cause. It was a bizarre and perplexing condition. Though he usually didn't like being touched, he felt a strange pleasure now. Qingtong was perplexed. The more she investigated, the more confused she became. Yi Qianming asked, how's the market? Qingtong replied, no problem. Inwardly, she was frustrated. Another dead end. Her vision was failing, and she needed to restore it quickly. Just as she was about to excuse herself, the man stopped her. Trying to run again, he placed his hand on her shoulder. We agreed to drink until we're both drunk. Don't go back on your word. What's going on? Why won't he let me leave? She wondered. She could only blame her mother. The man could see through her thoughts. Your eyes are about to fail. I'll wait until you collapse. Since she couldn't leave, she decided to play along. Qingtong now understood she'd been tricked. How could she be so naive? Seeing her distressed expression, Yi Qianming smiled inwardly. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach. I need to use the restroom. Yi Qianming grinned mischievously. No problem. I'll have bake-in. No? Qingtong interrupted. It's fine. I'll go with you. Qingtong realized she'd walked right into his trap. How could she be so foolish? Seeing her defeated look, Yi Qianming's heart softened. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach again, groaning dramatically. Ouch, it really hurts. He grinned. It seems I have no choice but to trouble you. Bacon stared blankly, inwardly screaming, Master. You're so dramatic. Feng Yu, however, found it amusing. Master, you're hilarious. Yi Qianming stood up abruptly. Since Tong Tong insists, I'll accompany you. Qingtong had no choice but to ask Bacon for help. Please, little Bei. Bacon puffed out his chest. Don't worry, I'll keep a close watch on him. Yi Qianming smirked. Let's see how you escape this time. After a while, he started to feel anxious. Feng Yu reassured him, Don't worry, Master. We've got everything under control. He won't get into trouble. Yi Qianming, however, crushed the wine glass in his hand. Qingtong was still with Bacon. His eyes narrowed. He sensed a murderous aura emanating from Bacon. What was he planning? He grabbed Yi Qianming's hand, a gesture that made Yu Lao want to chop off Bacon's hand. This annoyed Yi Qianming. He placed the ring on the table. I'm taking you somewhere to meet some friends. Yi Qianming was led away by the sudden invitation. They arrived at a room. Yi Qianming instantly felt uneasy. A group of men rushed towards him. He stared at them, stunned. A surge of killing intent exploded from him. He turned to look for Qingtong, but she was gone. The heroine had abandoned the hero again. Hearing explosions behind him, the man flew into a rage. The repercussions were severe. Chunzu was terrified, realizing that he and Zhugan might end up together. Qingtong slapped the idiot. He was then ordered to gather all the refining equipment. Each piece was massive, capable of accommodating hundreds of people. Chunzu was impressed. How did she get so many high-grade tools? Qingtong, her face covered in peeling makeup, replied, They are for setting traps, of course. Yi Qianming, flustered, arrived at the designated location. Zitong. You couldn't wait to get rid of me, could you? He thought she'd faked her distress. What are you talking about? Bacon and Feng Yu asked, bewildered. Master, what happened? Yi Qianming was exasperated. She brought me to a brothel. Do you understand? Xiao Bei was furious. I'll tear her to shreds. I'll torture her. Yi Qianming was even more enraged. How dare you talk about her like that? I won't allow it. Bacon realized something was wrong. Could Master actually have feelings for Ziyi? Yi Qianming's outburst confirmed his suspicion. He remembered the conversation between Bacon and Feng Yu. Does Master like Ziyi? He thought about the woman's brazen behavior, her carefree and mischievous nature, her lively and exaggerated reactions whenever she saw him. He couldn't deny it any longer. He was smitten. Bacon cautiously asked, Master, do you have feelings for Ziyi? Feng Yu quickly clamped a hand over his mouth. Are you trying to get us killed? Don't be so careless. The terrified Feng Yu dragged Xiao Bei away. This brought Yi Qianming back to reality. Feelings for her, Feng Yu explained, if you constantly worry about someone, and get easily angered by their actions. Feng Yu believed this was love, and he looked expectantly at Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming suddenly understood. If I have feelings for her, then I must have her. That woman had made the first move. Now that he understood his feelings, he wouldn't let her get away. Late that night, he appeared in the underground chambers of the Qianyu Imperial Palace. Qingtong suddenly materialized before some ancient text. She swiftly activated her formation, easily bypassing the defenses, and entered. Qingtong frowned. The Qianyu imperial family is surprisingly cautious, even setting up a barrier here. It was a special energy barrier, activated only by royal blood. Chunzu thought they were stuck. Qingtong smiled slyly. There's more than one way. Besides blood, there's medicine. She then took out some shu mi rings and casually tossed them inside. The next second, the rings exploded. It turned out she was testing explosives. She'd instructed her subordinates to use the available resources to create shu mi rings, and distribute them, while she searched the treasury for the required medicinal herbs. Time passed as she meticulously added the ingredients according to the ancient recipe. Chunzu asked skeptically, do you even know how to refine medicine? Of course, she did. She was following the instructions to create the medicine that would help her grandfather recover. The crucial final step was to imbue it with the power of heaven and earth, maximizing its potency. As she carefully added the ingredients, the roof suddenly blew off. Both Qingtong and Chunzu stared, wide-eyed. The Qian Xingguo was finally finished. Lao San cried out excitedly as the cauldron exploded. Chun Tzu, a veteran of countless explosions, simply chuckled. I haven't seen Qingtong mess up this badly in a while. He failed to notice a figure descending from above. Suddenly, it slammed into him, pinning him to the ground, and a blood-curdling scream echoed. Night fell, and the medicine was finally complete. Qingtong's eyes snapped open. Seeing the finished medicine, she exclaimed, "It's done." Chun Tzu also breathed a sigh of relief. After countless explosions and wasted ingredients, he no longer had to live in fear. As Qingtong reached for the medicine, ready to consume it all in one gulp, Xiao Zhu suddenly tumbled onto the table. The medicine to cure her eyes was also ready. Chun Tzu began to frantically search for it, prompting Qingtong to join him. During their search, she stumbled upon a letter. It was a recommendation from Da Qin Sheng Yuan Academy. Recalling the old man from Heiyu, Xiao Zhu figured he must have been impressed by Qingtong's talent and sent her a recommendation. A voice suddenly startled him. Several figures materialized in the room. Qingtong was shocked to find Luo Qingtong standing before her. Elsewhere, Xiaobei was searching for Feng Yu. Ever since their last encounter, Feng Yu had removed the seal. Now, traces of energy from the Juyu Huang realm lingered in the river. Unable to swim, he panicked. Suddenly, a splash led him to believe Feng Yu had. He turned to find Zhuofei smiling at him. Remembering the events at Dai Sifang, Xiaobei shuddered. Zhuofei, flustered, explained that he was going to rescue him, but Feng Yu stopped him. Feng Yu angrily asked, "Why did you hurt Xiaobei? If anything happens to him, it'll make you pay." He was, after all, Bei Kei's subordinate. Feng Yu, however, was shoved away roughly. He was unworthy of being near Xiaobei. Suddenly, Xiaobei emerged from the water. Noticing tears in Feng Yu's eyes, Feng Yu embraced Xiaobei. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left." Seeing Feng Yu cry, Xiaobei felt a stab of guilt. He didn't understand why. Zhuofei observed them, a warmth blooming in his chest, but the sight of them embracing filled him with a strange jealousy. Xiaobei was also startled by Zhuofei's actions, staring at him with wide eyes. He couldn't comprehend the trauma Dai Sifang must have caused. He forced a smile and explained. Only then did Xiaobei admit he'd overreacted. He also mentioned that since he couldn't swim, he wanted Zhuofei to check for any Juyu Huang realm remnants in the water. Feng Yu inwardly cursed Xiaobei for his foolishness. As Zhuofei entered the water, Xiaobei suddenly pushed him. Feng Yu reacted instantly. As Xiaobei watched in disbelief, Feng Yu lifted a massive boulder and hurled it into the water. Zhuofei, still submerged, was completely unaware. Thousands of miles away, Feng Yu had assembled his men and surrounded the Luo residence. It turned out that the Wang clan army had failed to secure the crown prince. Instead, they were being threatened by Qingtong, who held the prince hostage. The Wang clan reported this to Qian Yu. Following Yu Wenzu's pleas, the Qian Yu emperor ordered him to rescue the prince and annihilate the Luo family. The man stood before the Luo residence. The formations laid by Qingtong were nothing to him. With a wave, they shattered, and spiritual energy surged from the residence. The man raised his hand, his face a mask of cold ruthlessness. "Leave no one alive," he commanded. He stormed into the Luo residence, his target Luo Lao Yizi. Zhan Yu rushed him, only to be swatted aside like a fly. The last defender was eliminated just as he was about to enter the house. He triggered a formation. He was shocked. This small Luo family residence was surprisingly well defended. He channeled his spiritual energy, summoning a massive energy shield. It was his signature move. Yi Jian Cheng Cheng. In a flash, a sword beam from the Luo family sword shattered the shield. Qingtong, in her Zi disguise, appeared before him. Countless figures emerged from the Luo residence. He ordered his men to prepare, ready to deal with the intruders himself. Chun Tzu worried about Qingtong, who had consumed a significant amount of potent medicine. Qingtong, however, dismissed his concerns. The man was surprised that Ziyi Guitong would defend the Luo family. Given the sensitive nature of Ziyi's identity, he approached cautiously. "Is there anything I can help you with?" His dual swords morphed into lethal weapons. A chilling killing intent emanated from Qingtong, engulfing the Luo residence. The man revealed his identity. "I am Yu Wenzu of the Qian Yu imperial family." This only fueled Qingtong's killing intent. The sword technique he employed was effortlessly countered. As the mist cleared, his protective armor became visible. Xiao Zhu warned, "Be careful, master. That's Wu Di armor." The man let out a maniacal laugh. "A mere armor. "I'm not afraid." His attack hit the man, but didn't even scratch him. He raised his hand and sent Qingtong flying with a single punch. A ferocious tiger materialized behind him, its spiritual energy radiating outwards. The tiger lunged towards Qingtong. Chunzu, petrified, flew out of hiding. "Master! Help!" He wanted to intervene, but Qingtong ordered him to stay back. He was curious about the formations, and wanted to test if the Yin Hun Muse would attribute could absorb energy in this spirit-rich environment. Qingtong watched the tiger approach, sneering. "Seriously injured, yet you still use spiritual power. You're asking for it." Her red pupils glowed. This was one ruthless gambler. Spiritual energy surged into her sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Fa Ju. A massive force slammed into the tiger's paw. The tiger roared in agony. The next day, several unwelcome visitors showed up at the Luo residence gate. The Luo family is doomed thanks to Luo Qingtong. If you're smart, you'll switch allegiance and follow second miss. The same people who moments before were arrogant and dismissive, claiming Luo Qingtong was useless, were now groveling, begging for mercy. It turned out that after resolving the matters at Juwu Mountain, Qingtong had returned to Luo Fu. With a mere glance, the man was instantly subdued by her tears. However, she poured the yixiang he brought onto them, and ordered the war slaves, since they want to join us so badly, indulge them. Then she had them locked up. "Go tell Luo Xinning that she and her mother will pay for everything they've done to me and the Luo family." Back at the Luo residence, Luo Lao Yizi's face was pale and haggard. Seeing the disarray, he weakly asked, What's happened?" The household staff knelt, trembling. The steward explained that Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation was rapidly dissipating. He was on the verge of becoming a cripple. This news devastated Qingtong. Touching Luo Lao Yizi's pale face, she understood his pain. His cultivation had already dropped to the 6th level of Wuzong, and was still falling. This made Qingtong furious. Who would devise such a cruel and insidious method? The steward recounted everything. It was Luo Xinning's scheme. After Luo Lao Yizi collapsed, she seized control of the Luo family, spreading rumors that Qingtong was to blame. Qingtong, however, suspected more than just Luo Xinning's involvement. She didn't believe Luo Xinning had the guts or brains for such a scheme. It had to be the Qianyu imperial family pulling the strings. She was merely a pawn. Luo Lao Yizi suddenly awoke. Seeing that Qingtong was safe and sound, Luo Lao Yizi was relieved. He blamed himself for his recklessness, which had led to his coma, and caused Qingtong so much worry. Qingtong, seeing his remorse, reassured him, "Grandpa, don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Luo Lao Yizi chuckled. "A little lost cultivation is nothing. As long as you're all right, I'm fine." Qingtong's eyes reddened. Luo Lao Yizi had done everything for her. How could she ever repay him? She held his hand. "Don't you worry, Grandpa. I'll protect the Luo family. I'll help you recover, and you'll be stronger than before." At Luo Xinning's residence, a plaque bearing Luo Fu hung proudly above the gate. Inside, Bai Lian's family was celebrating. They had taken control of the Luo family, and were toasting Qingtong's downfall. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses shattered the festive atmosphere. "By order of eldest Miss, we are here to arrest the second branch and seize their assets." Bai Lian's mother was furious. The war slave raised the imperial edict, sending a wave of fear through the room. Bai Lian was horrified. She couldn't believe an ordinary guard was a 5th-level woohoo. How does Luo Qingtong have such powerful guards? The war slave, seeing their hesitation, advanced, and Bai Lian and the others stumbled back in fear. Suddenly, Bai Lian's eyes darted to the side, and she shoved her own father towards the war slave. During the ensuing chaos, the war slave easily captured Bai Lian's father. As they retreated, Bai Lian even threw her maids at the guards, one by one. He was clearly willing to sacrifice everything. To save himself, screams of terror and anger echoed from the entrance. The men were imprisoned, but Lao pleaded for his release. He was Wang Xifeng's loyal subordinate, and the Qianyu emperor was his backing. Qingtong also learned from the war slaves that Bai Lian had fled to the Deepening Shengyuan Academy. When she arrived at the dungeon, she happened upon the man pleading with the guards. Qingtong scoffed. "Your own father is being used as a shield, yet you still want him to rescue you." The man, however, thought differently. He believed it was all Ning Er's scheme. His eyes turned cold. He wouldn't spare anyone who harmed his grandfather, especially those pulling the strings behind the scenes. He called the man pathetic, worse than an animal, for using his own father. Luo, oblivious, was still trying to argue. When Qingtong took out a few pills, she ordered the first war slave to give Luo the pills, and to release the decoy outside. Luo's face turned pale upon hearing this. After swallowing the pills, the man's strength surged. However, using this enhanced strength would result in a severe backlash. If he didn't use it, he'd turn into a beast. In despair, Luo cried out, Ning I won't forgive you. Qingtong ignored him. Bai Lian was next. That night, Qingtong was in her study, looking at the account books. Zhan Enyu reported that Luo Qingtong had returned to the Luo residence. She was accompanied by a Qianyu branch academy instructor who, strangely, was deeply devoted to Qingtong. Intrigued, Qingtong wanted to see for herself. She instructed Zhan Enyu to compile a list of the gifts she'd received from the royal family and nobles over the years, planning on sending them to Bai Lian as a present. At that moment, Bai Lian was in her room, pacing nervously. She was convinced that Qingtong wouldn't let her go. Her father's disappearance was Qingtong's doing. Chu Laoma wasn't there, but if he dared to return and cause trouble, she'd make sure he regretted it. Bai Lian put on a pitiful facade, gaining Chu Lao's sympathy. He believed her to be too kind and therefore a target for Qingtong's bullying. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted them. The Luo family plaque lay shattered on the floor. Qingtong, sitting atop a tall horse, ordered the war slaves to destroy the plaque. She slapped Bai Lian, whose face was caked with makeup, for having the audacity to impersonate a Luo. The war slaves eagerly carried out the order. Stop. That plaque was given to Miss by the Qianyu branch academy. Qingtong, however, ignored the protests. Bai Lian emerged, putting on a dramatic performance. Big sister, what are you doing? The two locked eyes. The Luo family plaque was all that remained. Since you've been expelled from the family, are you even worthy of this plaque? Qingtong then had her men hang a new plaque. The two characters Daofu infuriated Bai Lian. Overcome with fear and rage, she shrieked, I'm your sister. How could you humiliate me like this? Don't you have a conscience? Qingtong became even more furious at Bai Lian's fake display of innocence. Bai Lian sobbed dramatically. Big sister, you're so cruel. You kicked me out of the family, and now you're still tormenting me. Look what you've done to the Luo family. Grandpa's deteriorating health is all your fault. Her acting was truly deserving of an award. Qingtong would have been fine if Luo Yizi hadn't been mentioned, but his name only added fuel to the fire. Zhan Enyu stepped forward. What have you done? Do you dare to tell the truth? Bai Lian's expression changed rapidly. One moment, she was fiercely defending her disciple and doting on him. The next, she was slapped hard across the face. It turned out that Qingtong not only revealed her shameful secrets, but also provided undeniable evidence. Just now, when confronted with the accusations, Bai Lian had shamelessly hidden behind Chu Lao. He couldn't stand to see his precious disciple being humiliated. In Qingtong's eyes, Bai Lian was an arrogant and domineering brat, flaunting the fifth prince's favor, and causing trouble wherever she went. Qingtong frowned. And just who is this mutt? The Luo family's affairs are none of his concern. Qingtong's disrespectful words were twisted by Bai Lian, who then revealed that Chu Lao was a recruitment instructor from the Qianyu branch academy. Qingtong inwardly scoffed at the old fool for being so easily deceived by the two-faced Bai Lian, and becoming her shield. Did someone drop him on his head as a child? She thought. Qingtong sneered, showing him no respect. This enraged Chu Lao, who threatened to teach her a lesson. Qingtong, however, was unfazed. While Chun Zhu desperately wanted to challenge the old man, Qingtong stopped him. She wasn't interested in fighting, preferring to watch the drama unfold. She instructed the war slaves to bring out the account books. Since Chu Lao wants to stand up for his disciple, let's settle these debts for her. She then threw Zhao Mu into Bai Lian's arms, startling her. When Chu Lao looked at the account books, he inwardly panicked. He tried to object, but it was too late. He insisted that Qingtong had fabricated the entries, claiming that none of those items had ever existed. Knowing Bai Lian inside and out, Qingtong challenged her. Then do you dare let me search your room? The war slaves were sent to the residence. Bai Lian placed all her hope on Chu Lao, her heart pounding, her face draining of color. Those were gifts from you. This confession was her undoing. Qingtong didn't miss a beat. Those were from the Qian Yu imperial family. Why would I give them away? Are you expecting me to return them? Bai Lian was at a loss for words, tears streaming down her face. You're just jealous that I'm more talented. Suddenly, a shout interrupted her crocodile tears. Why are you using your mother's money? Bai Lian insisted that she was forced by Qingtong to accept the treasures. Qingtong was beyond exasperated. Do I have rocks in my head? Forcing you to accept gifts. Am I the crazy one, or are you? She ordered the war slaves to confiscate everything. Anyone who dared to obstruct them would be considered an enemy of the Qian Yu imperial family. Seeing her scheme fall apart, Bai Lian pleaded with Chu Lao to intervene. Chu Lao stood up without hesitation. Her persistence is just a ploy to get back the recommendation and the family heirloom. He also accused Qingtong of being disrespectful towards the imperial family, declaring that she would never be permitted to enter the Qian Yu Academy. Qingtong, however, didn't care. That thing's been used. I don't need it. Entrance to Qian Yu Academy is based on merit, not on being a Luo. She stared intently at Chu Lao's jade pendant. Isn't this the engagement token given to me by the fifth prince? This sent Chu Lao into a furious rage. He ripped the pendant off, and yelled at Bai Lian, didn't you say it was a gift from the Qian Yu imperial family? Bai Lian was completely speechless, her face ashen. Qingtong burst into laughter. This is my definition of reaching one's limit. I don't know about yours. She slapped Bai Lian hard across the face. Chu Lao had never experienced such humiliation. Qingtong, adding insult to injury, clapped her hands in delight. She tossed the jade pendant aside and left triumphantly. She enjoyed watching others struggle while she remained untouchable. Xiaozu appeared, clapping his hooves approvingly. Suddenly, the Juyu Huang realm seal trembled. Qingtong was taken aback. Xiaozu was startled. Why was the seal, after being quiet for so long, suddenly active? Qingtong was busy lecturing Bai Lian, but disappeared in a flash. It appeared something was wrong with the Juyu Huang realm seal. The reason for the disturbance was the man's return. Yi Qianming was consumed by thoughts of Qingtong. Back in the dark sacred region, countless people bowed before the returning sovereign. His return immediately brought a sense of calm to the previously chaotic atmosphere. Feng Yu and Bai Shou exchanged glances. Yu Lao teased him, I thought you were lured away by that invitation. The man, however, simply raised his hand, revealing the magnificent dragon fang sword on his finger. This surprised Yu Lao. He hadn't expected him to actually return to the dark sacred region. Yu Lao, his eyes glued to the ring, asked, don't tell me you returned just for that ring. Were you really that taken by that little invitation? Xiaobei seized the moment and boldly declared, Master, that invitation wasn't from a woman. Just as Xiaobei was about to give a flustered explanation, Yi Qianming glared at him, effectively silencing him. Yu Lao, seeing the man's flustered reaction, continued, so that little invitation really did catch your attention. Xiaobei desperately tried to deny it. Feng Yu interjected, explaining that Qingtong probably misunderstood Master Ming Zun's intentions. From her perspective, he was most likely just chasing after her. This explanation further frustrated Yi Qianming. I not only gave her my name. We even bathed together. I let her touch me however she pleased. I even gave her the Juyu Huang realm sword. What more does she want? Is that so? Feng Yu's lips twitched. This clueless sovereign. Feng Yu tried again. Qingtong might think your actions are merely admiration, not romantic interest. Yi Qianming stubbornly refused to admit his feelings. Do you expect me to confess my love for her? I, the dignified Ming Zun, cannot utter such words. Enough, Feng Yu sighed, turning his head away. Disheartened, he wondered what had done wrong. Seeing the increasingly gloomy look on the sovereign's face, Feng Yu offered, perhaps Qingtong has a different way of thinking. Your royal status might make her see you as just another pursuer. This advice made Yi Qianming ponder. How could he get the woman to reciprocate his feelings? At that moment, Qingtong was wandering the entertainment district. The fake ring Shed crafted astonished even Chun Zhu. Shed designed it to absorb her spiritual energy and mask its aura, making it undetectable. After completing the fake ring, she resumed her Qingtong disguise. Chun Zhu worried, are you afraid he won't find you? You're practically advertising yourself as Qingtong. Qingtong, however, had her reasons. Having entered the Qian Yu imperial treasury, she needed to sell the loot quickly. Chun Zhu muttered, you're playing with fire again. Suddenly, she heard people talking about the Qianyu imperial family's protector, Bei Dao, being challenged. To find the perpetrator, they'd summoned Chu Lao, who ended up seriously injured by a mysterious Sheng Zun expert, causing them to fear Ming Zun. Qingtong and Chen Zhu were stunned. When did he become so powerful? Chen Zhu scoffed, Sheng Zun. Please. That's wishful thinking, but after some thought, Qingtong realized only that man was capable of injuring the imperial family's protector, and frightening Chu Lao. A chilling realization dawned on her. Juwu Mountain Ming Zun, could they be the same person? Qingtong's blood ran cold. Since Yi Qianming had dealt with the stolen goods, she should leave them for him. Not far away, Jizun assassins were watching Qingtong. Aware that she was being followed, she made her way to the main city. The assassins were confused when she entered their territory. She appeared on the city wall. Are you looking for me? With a casual wave of her hand, she activated a seemingly ordinary confinement formation. The assassins just scoffed. This woman would be easy to kill. Qingtong looked them over, wondering why the Jizun assassin guild was targeting Ziyi Guitong. The assassins didn't realize the formation was just a diversion, an excuse for her to kill. A sinister smile played on her lips. She summoned a sword. The assassins, initially unconcerned, were suddenly on guard. Before they could react, Qingtong vanished, a blow of colors. Needles rained down from above. Their leader was instantly transformed into a pincushion. Qingtong's voice was cold. I'll give you one last chance. Who sent you?